Halo, halo, halo.
After a long weekend, the race is finally about to start. We're on the starting grid where the engineers are completing their checks before the start. There is something magical about racing on the Assen track.
Bentar, kita setting scoreboardnya dulu. Oke, saatnya balapan. Pesta race.
The director takes us to the starting grid where riders are trying to maintain their concentration before the start of the race. The sky is clear, but the temperatures are low, so there's no need to worry too much about
Yang mau
consumption.
rokok
Not
lu bikin
surprisingly,
kopi,
most
bikin
teams
kopi
opted
lu.
for a set of soft tyres.
Berapa menit lagi sih? 6 menit lagi cuy.
There is something magic.
Enam menit lagi live MotoGP qualify 1. Oish, kasar. Selamat bergabung yang belum subscribe. Pendukungnya Marquez mana? Sambil menunggu live kita balapan dulu. Bentar lagi 6 menit lagi live. Kita live langsung scoreboard. Wah, disusul toprak kita. Jangan kemana-mana guys, sebentar lagi live MotoGP qualify 1. Mana pendukungnya Marquez? Sebentar lagi mulai live. Mana pendukungnya Marquez? Pendukungnya Marquez mana nih? Bentar lagi mulai. Oh, jangan lewat rumput kawan. Pendukungnya Marquez mana nih suaranya? Waduh, kok belum pada nonton ya? Sepi kali tumben. Sebentar lagi mulai live-nya ya. Kita selesaikan dulu game yang nanggung. Last lap. Kebiasaan. Oh, melebar. Tahu lah. Ayo sebentar lagi mulai live. Ya, mulai live kita.
This long race weekend also comes to a close with the end of the
Dua menit lagi.
In this session, Mir, Moreira, Marini, top Razgatlioglu, Brad Binder, Maverick Vinales, Fabio Quartararo also involved in this action. Alex Rins, 2, Jack Miller had a tip off at De Bolt at turn 9 in FP2 this morning. Just a quick reminder ahead of this qualifying session, if you are joining us for the first time this weekend, Fermin Aldeguer on the Gresini Ducati unfortunately has been ruled out of action for the remainder of the battle here at the TT Circuit Assen. He suffered a fracture in his back, a T7 fracture yesterday in a real scary crash in practice. Bezzecchi, Fernandez, Acosta, Ogura, Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Gian Antonio, Bastianini, Martin and Alex Marquez. They are your 10. And they've already gone through directly into Q2 after yesterday's practice. But once again, it was hot conditions here in Assen yesterday and more hot water for Frankie Morbidelli.
Yeah, unfortunately, a bit of a running theme for Frankie Morbidelli in Friday practice sessions when perhaps he switches off when he's not on a fast lap on his way back to the pits. Three-place group penalty to try and mitigate that. Of course, that penalty will not apply for this afternoon's sprint. 1 year ago, Fabio Quartararo took pole position. Just a bit of a wry sort of lifting of the eyebrows there when he saw the lap time, thinking, I can only dream of that today.
Did that picture tell the story of where Yamaha and Fabio Quartararo are right now? Pole position to being nowhere near pole position. Let's be brutally frank about it at the moment. Fabio Quartararo in Q1 for the 8th time in the opening 10 Grand Prix. He's only featured in 3 Q2 sessions so far this season. I mean, he can only dream of a 30.6, can't he, to get him anywhere near the front row of the grid. Joan Mir, super strong yesterday.
2 menit lagi, guys.
Second quickest in the first split, losing a whole chunk of time, almost
Mulai
half
MotoGP.
a second in the final split. Mir was 12th yesterday, just over a tenth of a second outside of that all-important top 10. had a cracking ride in Brno, didn't he? 6 days ago in the main Grand Prix, 5th at the checkered flag, managing that Michelin soft rear tyre all the way through. That was a heck of an effort by Joan Mir.
Yeah, Honda have got to think that they've got a real shot of getting
15
two riders
menit
through
lagi,
to
guys.
qualifying two.
Kita
They
dulu
came
ya.
very close yesterday. Mir missed out by 1/10 of a second. Morera was a fraction behind Mir. Perhaps the problem that Morera might have last year's Moto2 pole here at the Cathedral of Speed is that he's not got the obvious candidates to follow in this Q1 session. The likes of Bezzecchi, Bagnaia that we've seen him follow through this weekend so far are all already through to qualifying too. So Morera is likely going to have to do this all on his own.
Yeah, and this is an experience he hasn't had since Catalonia. He was directly through to Q2 in all of the last 3 Grand Prix, wasn't he? Diogo Morera. Cal Crutchlow then, the 40-year-old Brit, doing a stellar job replacing the absent Johan Zarco, recovering of course from the serious leg injuries, the left leg injuries he suffered in that nasty first corner incident over in Catalonia a few weeks ago. Cal Crutchlow was 3rd here 13 years ago now, in 2013. Pole position in the same year as well, which on occasion made him the first Brit to pole in MotoGP since Jeremy McWilliams, all the way back at Phillip Island in 2002. Q1 then underway here in Assen. Unlikely, highly unlikely, we say never so often in MotoGP, but very unlikely that Fabio Quartararo is going to make it back-to-back poles here at this iconic venue. He's in no hurry to get out on circuit at the moment on the factory Yamaha. He was 15th yesterday, Quartararo, from pole position last year to almost a second behind Marco Bezzecchi at the end of play on Friday.
A Q1 session heavily populated by Japanese motorcycles. There are 12 riders in this Q1 session. 5 of them are on Yamahas, and of course 4 of them on Hondas. We also have the KTMs of Vinales and Binder. Maverick and Vinales keen to make some positive headlines for Tech 3 and Gunther Steiner this weekend, alongside Brad Binder, of course, and with the the withdrawal of Fermin Aldeguer, just the one Ducati in this session. That is, of course, Frankie Morbidelli.
1:30.6 then was Quartararo's pole time last year. The Frenchman, it has been excessively hot here this weekend. We have had extreme heat in this part of the northeast Netherlands, but he has not done a single 1:31. That's so far here this weekend as Quartararo. So long odds on him getting anywhere near pole position once again, as the field then start to build up the temperature in those Michelin tyres. 2 riders, of course, as always, that will advance into the second qualifying session. Here is Joan Mir now. It's in this sector 4 now where the Honda was really struggling yesterday. Couldn't get the bike really turn, get it through the tight apex. 4 or 5/10 of a second. The factory Hondas in particular, Marini and Mir, were losing in that 4 split.
It's likely going to take a mid-31, something like that, to get you into qualifying 2 here, potentially a low 31. We might get into the 30s by the time we get into qualifying later on, as Frankie Morbidelli navigates his way through a first sector which is largely on the right-hand side of the tyre. You're on the right-hand side for an age here, through turns 1, 2, 3 and 4 before you're finally left for one of the slowest corners on the calendar, the tight first gear Disturban hairpin.
Trying to minimise the damage here, isn't he, Morbidelli? Trying to get the order as high as he can this Q1 session, having been slapped with another sanction, another grid penalty for the inexcusable touring in the middle of a 5th gear corner here in Assen yesterday, severely disrupting Enea Bastianini. Thankfully not disrupting the beast enough to deny Enea a place in Q2. So yeah, not for the first time Frankie has found himself in front of Simon Crafar and the FI MotoGP Stewards panel.
He's probably found the next best thing as Morera in terms of riders to follow in this session. He's up behind the sole Ducati in this session of Frankie Morbidelli, so one Brazilian, I guess you could say, helping another potentially this session, and Morera at this stage of the lap is slightly quicker as we now enter that final sector. Binder just behind him, also looking to try and lift himself up the grid on what has been a tough weekend so far for the South African.
Really has. How tough? His worst Friday in 4 years since the Japanese Grand Prix Motegi back in 2022. He described it as a tune-up himself. Straight after the Balaton Park Grand Prix, he was in for arm pump surgery, and fresh while that injury is still recovering, while that operation is still healing. The last place on earth you want to be coming really is Assen, where it's just full, overloaded. I was going to say Moreira got that wrong, didn't he, going into turn 3? But Assen overloaded with high-speed change direction, which is really going to be hindering Brad Binder. Top end of the circuit, then we pick up Quartararo. So Moreira had to abort that particular lap. Leader of this Q1 session with a 1:31.718.
And some Portuguese swear words, I think, being aimed at his LCR Honda as a result of that mistake. As Quartararo enters the Ramschut corner, as you mentioned, never mind a 1:30, he'll take a 31 at this stage of the weekend. Yet to set one so far this weekend, but if we know one rider on this grid who is capable of producing something quite spectacular on a qualifying lap, it is Fabio Quartararo, who does now find his first 1:31 of the weekend, but it's only good enough for 4th.
Mir and Morbidelli are on good laps, so too is Binder. Binder is in 3rd place, just over 10th at the moment outside of Morbidelli. Here is Morbidelli now attacking this jaw-dropping, this breathtaking final sector, which is where a MotoGP bike really does get to stretch its legs. There is Mir. Well, this surely is going to be the best time of the session. If Mir can have a clean run through the final sector, this is where he and the Honda have been weak. But he's not going to be impeded, doesn't look like, by Binder as they come into the timber chicane. Yeah, this is all super neat and tidy by Mir. No issues with track limits. Over the line he goes. Bang, a 1:31.315 from Mir. That's half a second quicker than anything he managed here on Friday. Well, they have found something in the fall sector, it looks like.
Yeah, had a bit of potentially a reference up ahead from Binder, but he certainly did that all on his own, did the 2020 World Champion. That is the 4th fastest lap time of the weekend. Only Bezzecchi, Fernandez and Acosta have gone quicker than that lap time so far this weekend, and he's now got a 4/10 cushion back to Moreira and Morbidelli, who are split by 100th of a second, 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, Mir's magic has proven costly for Morbidelli, because that's bumped Frankie out of that top 2, not by much, just over 100th of a second. But of course, when you factor in the grid pen coming the way of Frankie tomorrow, that's going to put him 16th on the grid for the 26th lap Grand Prix of the Netherlands. So Moreira in by a whisker, hasn't got much margin to play with ahead of his second run. He might have gone quicker than his 1:31.718, to be fair, had he not made the mistake going into the second gear turn 3.
Familiar experience coming for Luca Marini as it stands at the moment. He's 6th in this session, so that would be, what, the 4th time in the last 5 Grand Prix that Luca Marini would have qualified in 16th place if he stays where he is. Miller 7th, of course. Reminder, he crashed at the end of qualifying 1, so likely just the 1 bike for Miller in this session. Rins 8th, Fernandez on the wildcard Yamaha 9th, and Maverick Vinales at the moment, no signs of his weekend taking a turn for the better. He's done a 33.1, he's way off the pace in 10th.
Time attacks have not been Marini's forte so far this year. This is his 9th Q1 appearance in the opening 10 Grand Prix of the season, so clearly if there's one obvious area where Marini has to find some speed and find some pace, it is when he goes into time attack mode on fresh Michelin rubber. As it stands at the moment, it's 15th on the grid for Fabio Quartararo. That would change if it stays as is for the Grand Prix tomorrow with the incoming Morbidelli penalty. But you are looking at a rider who did a 30.6 here last year to take pole position. He's going to get a little bit balked here by Maverick Vinales going through 15. He certainly is. I don't think that's Vinales touring. I think that's just Maverick Vinales slow. Yeah,
just doing as much as he can, because as mentioned, Vinales is stuck in the 1:33s at the moment in this session. Here he comes into the pits, and Vinales has done 4 laps in this session, so that is 2 timed for Maverick Vinales. The first one was in the 35s, and then a 33.1 on his second lap. He did say yesterday, he said, physically, I just can't do what the other KTM riders are doing at the moment. And outside of Pedro Acosta, it's not like Binder's been particularly quick, or Bastianini, even if Bastianini's in the top 10. Vinales, though, just way off the pace on his own. He was down in 16th yesterday on a 32.3. He's 8/10 slower than that at the moment.
He's lost. He is completely lost, isn't he, Maverick Vinales? Of course, you always look at Assen when you put the 31-year-old in the conversation and think, well, he's got such a stellar record here. 4 successive podiums he had back in 2018, 2019, 2021 and 2022. He was the winner in 2019. He's been top 5 the last 2 years. He's been here in Assen as well. A whole bunch of podiums in the smaller classes too. Sprint podium here in 2024, which was his last, sprint medal finish. But yeah, the tables have turned the wrong way. And Maverick Vinales, 4 successive podiums, 4 podiums, 4 successive podiums. He's been top 5 the last 2 years. He's been here in Assen as well. A whole bunch of podiums in the smaller classes too. Sprint podium here in 2024, which was his last sprint medal finish. But yeah, the tables have turned the wrong way for Maverick Vinales, who is nowhere. I mean, he's 0.3 of a second behind Augusto Fernandez in 9th.
And ultimately, whilst I guess you could understand if you put yourself in Maverick's shoes, you could understand his frustration with the uncertainty around his future at the moment. What kind of recent results and performances have KTM and Tech3 got to look at to trust that they can give Maverick Vinales a long-term contract for the next couple of years? Of course, his pedigree, his class and his quality over the years is absolutely undoubted, but since his injury 1 year ago at the Saxon Ring, he has
Quartararo currently 5th, Alex Rins currently in 8th place. More technical issues. Came the way of Alex Rins yesterday morning, robbing him of some crucial track time. He really is going through the middle, isn't he, at the moment, Alex Rins? Although he does have point scoring finishes in 5 of the opening 9 Grand Prix, which is the most by any Yamaha rider. Not a bad record. The only problem for Alex is that none have been higher than 12th place. Top 10s and top 6s for any Yamaha rider this season have been few and very far between.
Moreira was waiting for Morbidelli again as they left the pits. I don't think Frankie's going to be too keen to tow Diogo around, including here last year, to try and drag that Yamaha kicking and screaming into Q2.
He needs a miracle, not magic, he needs a miracle to get himself in Q2, I think. Let alone fight for pole position. There's Paolo Pavesio, Yamaha Bass, we just saw on screens there. There's some positive news for Yamaha here in Assen this weekend. From 2028 on. Onwards, they will be the sole bike supplier for the Moto3 World Championship, so some significant changes in the regulations for MotoGP next year with the introduction of Pirelli tyres and the 850cc capacity era as Quartararo does go with a 131.271. He's been nowhere near the 31s all weekend.
Yeah, some 4/10 clear of the field, and look at Diogo Moreira having a good look behind. No one's prepared to tow you around this time, Diogo.
You're going to have to go because there's riders on fast laps here coming behind them. One of them being Jack Miller at the same corner where he crashed in FP2 this morning. He's being chased by his great friend, his good buddy Cal Crutchlow. Everybody's rolled out of it now, haven't they, as they come through turns 9 and 10. Picking his way through goes Fabio Quartararo, the fast first sector from the 2021 World Champion. So just 0.04 of a second then splitting Quartararo and Mir. Somebody's going to have to find something really special to deny those two a place in Q2 because they're over 0.4 clear of Moreira in 3rd place.
I did wonder whether there was a challenge coming from Binder. He set a personal best in the 1st sector, but he's lost a second in sector 2, so his hopes are already fading. Binder currently 5th. Quartararo has made a bit of a mess of the final chicane there, and I think he's unhappy with what's going on. Quartararo takes the shortcut, and potentially now we'll have to hope that 31-2 is good enough.
Yeah, he might be able to relax. There is a big gap between him and Diogo Moreira in 3rd of almost 4.5 of a second. We'll keep a very beady eye on the sector times in our commentary box. As you can see there as well, Alex Rins has backed out of it too. He picked up a couple of places up into 6th spot. Yeah, this is rush hour traffic, isn't it? Coming into the final chicane. Fabio Quartararo, he was on a flyer, wasn't he? And he's pretty frustrated, pretty angry on this occasion. It's not with the Yamaha that's underneath him.
It's a train of about 6 or 7 riders up ahead because, of course, we had the likes of Miller and Crutchlow who were on hot.
Yo, Assen, pendukungnya Marquez mana?
As it looks like we've had a crash there for Diogo Moreira, so he now will not be joining Quartararo and Mir in the top 2.
This has been a tough weekend so far for Moreira. That's his 2nd crash of the Grand Prix, and that's a biggie. That is a big one, isn't it? Oh, front, just washing out from underneath him. A couple of real nasty twists and turns in the gravel track for his body, but he's angry. So that's Moreira's Q2 hopes completely evaporated in a cloud of dust.
I think I think that's that. I think the top two might well be settled as a result of that, because no one's on personal best at the moment. Jack made a very good point in pit lane that all of that dawdling around and slowing down on the outlap might well have had an effect on front tyre temperature. The temperature in the crash element of Diogo Moreira, though, is certainly boiling hot right now.
Yeah, a mistake that he did not need to make. He'll know that. And that's cost him. It's cost him big time, because he's going to be 13th on the grid for the sprint and the Grand Prix tomorrow. It might get even worse. Morbidelli then in damage limitation mode after the balking of Bastianini yesterday.
Yang baru bergabung, selamat bergabung.
But it was 17th in the Grand Prix tomorrow. Here he is going through turn 5. The Struven.
1 menit lagi.
As early as you dare. Onto the fat part
Pemanasan.
of the tyre. Now through this high-speed sweep of sector 2. He's nailed the first split. Fair play to Frankie. That was an exceptional first sector.
And crucially for Morbidelli, it would appear the yellow flags have now cleared with Moreira's crash, because that could have also impacted Morbidelli's hopes of Q2. He's lost a little bit of time to Quartararo in the second sector. He's not got a big gap to try and slot in between Quartararo and Mir, just 400ths of a second, but he needs to improve on near on half a second than what he did earlier in the session if he is to leap himself into the top two.
He'll be hoping that a 131.7 is not his ceiling. It was a 131.727 he managed yesterday. This morning he's on a 131.729, so just 0.02 of a second between his best pace so far in this session and his best pace on Friday. This is more like it. I mean, if Frankie has a brilliant run for this final sector, we might be actually getting the first 130 of the weekend. Best time of Q1 then so far, with the checker flag now out, is a 131.271, set by Fabio Quartararo. Morbidelli misses out. He does find his best time of the weekend. He looks at the big screens and he'll be pretty upset what he sees. Close, Pablo Nieto, VR46 Ducati boss, frustrated. Morbidelli then finds his a 131.426, over 1/10 of a second though, crucially, behind Joan Mir. Look at the timing screens, it does look like it's Quartararo and Mir
MotoGP
going through the Q2.
Lost 0.3 of a second in that final sector, did Morbidelli, relative to Quartararo, and that cost him everything. Cost him a place in qualifying 2. First Q2 appearance since Barcelona for Fabio Quartararo, so theoretically his hopes of back-to-back Assen poles are still alive, even if it is the longest of long shots, even from here. Further down then, obviously Moreira did end up 4th, Binder 5th, Rins 6th on the factory Yamaha. Not a bad effort for him. So Marini 7th ahead of Miller. Viñales only got himself up into 9th place on the Tech 3 KTM ahead of Augusto Fernandez. And a shout out for Cal Crutchlow too, who got himself into the 132s to out-qualify Toprak Razgatioglu today.
Life in the old dog yet, the old warrior still fighting for hot lap times here in Assen. It's the 4th time this season in 10 Grand Prix, and the Quartararo will be featuring in Q2. Good lap that by Mir, wasn't it? A really good lap. 131.315 was the early reference time, and only Fabio Quartararo was able to find something faster. So our 2020 and our 2021 MotoGP World Champions are still in the hunt for pole position number 10 in 2026. There's Romano Albiciano, HRC Technical Director, watches on. Nothing going at all for Luca Marini, who has another poor qualifying. Mentioned earlier on about how his woes this year, how he's been suffering on those soft tyres. Well, 17th on the grid will be Marini. He won't even move up a place with the incoming Morbidelli penalty as well tomorrow. Big crash at turn 7 for Diogo Moreira, but he's done it again. He has found something super special in qualifying trim. Fabio Quartararo through into Q2. Let's get the thoughts of the Yamaha boss, Mario Guy with Jack.
Yeah, not too many Q2 appearances to celebrate this year, but Fabio again there, Mayo, just showing his talent.
Yeah, I did it. Honestly, passing from Q1 to Q2 is always very difficult. And here, in these days, we face some issues he could not expect, but he has been able to put together an incredible lap.
Yeah, brilliant job. Well done, Mayo.
Thank you.
Not bad for a bike yesterday that Fabio Quartararo said has 0 turning, 0 power, and 0 chance of being anywhere near the front. He's done it again though. Goiânia, Le Mans, Catalunya, and now here in Assen. His appearances in Q2. Great job, brilliant performance by the Frenchman. He has got good pedigree here at the TT Circuit Assen, and showing it once again. You can see him there, he's having a look at his pit board as he comes out of the timber chicane just to see what the state of play is. And the state of play is, so 131.271 has dragged Fabio Quartararo as he's dragged that factory Yamaha into Q2. Alongside him goes another former world champion, Joan Mir.
Yeah, both riding like world champions in that Q1 session. Quartararo and Mir move through to Q2. Frankie Morbidelli, costly Q1 exit, all lost in the final sector. Third for him, 13th for the sprint later on the grid, but he'll start 16th tomorrow afternoon. Barrera at 4th after crashing late on. Binder 5th ahead of Rins, Vinales only 9th. Fernandez 10th. And Cal Crutchlow claims the scalp of Toprak Razgatioglu in that Q1 session, 11th and 12th.
Quartararo and Mir then still in the game, still in the hunt for pole position number 10 in this year's MotoGP World Championship. The Frenchman flying for once this season on the factory Yamaha. He goes through with a 131.271. Can he pull off a major shock? Can he make it back-to-back poles here at the TT Circuit Assen? Don't go anywhere. Up next, it's the fight for pole in MotoGP. Q2 next live. Good morning and welcome back to a sun-drenched, a sun-kissed TT Circuit Assen. Feels like this is going to be one of the hottest Grand Prix of the Netherlands we've ever had in history. We've been coming here for so many years. Bar the COVID campaign in 2020, Assen has featured every single Grand Prix calendar since the very first one, all the way back in 1949. Just look at those ambient temperatures and surface temperatures. Scorching hot sunshine, 87 degrees Fahrenheit is the ambient temperature. Surface temperature well in excess of 40 degrees, and it's only going to get hotter and hotter as the day wears on and as we build up towards race action in round 10, the 13-lap Tissot sprint. That will be live at 3 p.m. local time this afternoon. More pressing matters though for the fastest riders in the world are grid positions, and certainly the first 4 rows of our race action here this weekend as Marco Bezzecchi and Aprilia and look to continue their domination so far of this Tissot Grand Prix of the Netherlands. Bez, the World Championship leader by 8 points over his factory Aprilia teammate Jorge Martin going into the sprint this afternoon, has led all 3 practice sessions so far this weekend. Undefeated then is the number 72. There was an Aprilia lockout of the top 3 in this morning's FP2 session. Bez leading home the Trackhouse duo of Ralph Fernandez and Ogura. On only one previous occasion have Aprilia locked out the entire front row of the grid. That was recently and memorably in front of their home fans
mana pendukungnya Marquez.
Mugello. Through then into Q2 yesterday were Bezzecchi, Ralph Fernandez, Pedro Acosta, who's had more technical issues on the factory KTM this morning. Ogura, pole position 7 days ago over in Brno. Pecco Bagnaia, a 3-time MotoGP winner here in Assen. Marc Marquez looking for a 3rd successive Grand Prix victory to pile the pressure on the Aprilias at the top of the championship. But Antonio, Bastianini, Martin and Alex Marquez, despite a massive crash for Alex on the run to turn 11 yesterday. He's in this upcoming Q2 session. Coming through Q1, Fabio Quartararo and Joan Mir. Most direct Q2 appearances so far this season. Well, it's the 2 Italians that have been enjoying their time attack so far this year. Marco Bezzecchi and Fabio Di Gianantonio directly through to Q2 in 9 of our opening 10 Grand Prix. 2 poles so far this year for Bez in Thailand and in Mugello. And on both occasions, he went on to win the Grand Prix. What a special occasion that was in Mugello. We'll never forget those post-race celebrations we were with it Bezzecchi experienced in Aprilia's home Grand Prix. It has been far from plain sailing since that Super Sunday, though, in the Tuscany Mountains. Just a sprint podium in Hungary, the only time since that Bez has troubled the point scoring places. and he's under pressure. The pressure is building from the reigning world champion, who just a few weeks ago was 102 points behind Bezzecchi after the Italian Grand Prix. He said the game was over, no chance of winning an 8th MotoGP World Championship. How quickly the picture can change. The gap between Bez and Marc Marquez, 40 coming into round 10. Marc Marquez was 6th, quickest here yesterday.
And I think Marc Marquez will perhaps accept and stomach losing some of that points gain this weekend, as long as he limits the damage. This does certainly feel like Aprilia's weekend, but we have said that already this season, and things can change very dramatically and very quickly in the MotoGP World Championship. But already this weekend, we've seen Marco Bezzecchi top free practice 1. He's top practice. He's topped free practice 2. It was an Aprilia 1-2 yesterday afternoon. It was an Aprilia 1-2-3 for large parts of this morning's FP2 session as well. If anything but an RSGP is on pole position this morning, it will be an almighty upset.
35 front row starts in his MotoGP career for Jorge Martin so far. Not too many of them on the factory Aprilia though, just the one so far this season. That was at the Italian Grand Prix in Mugello. A whole bunch of second and third row starts for Jorge Martin. He was on the 4th row last weekend, wasn't he? Of course, in Brno. We didn't have to look at anybody's rear tyre at the start of the sprint of the Grand Prix. In the Grand Prix of Czechia last weekend, did the Ogura, first Japanese rider on pole in 6 long years after Taka Nakagami's heroics in Aragon back in 2020. But pit lane is open, and Q2 open for business here then in the Grand Prix of the Netherlands. Can Ogura make it back-to-back pole positions? Is Marco Bezzecchi destined to continue his domination here at the TT Circuit Assen? Already 2 pole positions so far this season and 4 front rows for Fabio Di Gianantonio. He's been strong in qualifying trim so far this season. Qualifying's been fine. It's the starts that he's been struggling with so far. Has Digia, 3rd in the World Championship, just 23 points behind Bezzecchi coming into this 10th round.
Well, on your picture now, or when we get a wider shot of them, you'll have the current and the future factory Ducati lineups. Pecco Bagnaia leads Marc Marquez. The current all-red Ducati squad next season is Marc Marquez, and the rider right behind him, Pedro Acosta, who will make up the Bologna Bullets for the factory Ducati Lenovo team next season. And is this a sign of where Marc Marquez is at this weekend around a circuit that he's never counted amongst his favourites or his most profitable? That Pecco Bagnaia, who is perhaps as strong as anyone around this TT Circuit Assen, is leading Marc Marquez around.
He's the fastest rider in Assen history, Pecco Bagnaia. Still standing. Here's his all-time lap record of a 1:30.540 in this European heat wave. In the extreme conditions, both ambient and surface temperatures, we have yet to see a 1:30 so far here this weekend. Are we going to see one coming up in Q2? So this is now first flying laps for Bagnaia, for Marc Marquez, for Pedro Acosta. We'll tip it right into the first corner. Bagnaia, MotoGP winner here in 2022, 2023 and 2024. Moto3 and Moto2 wins as well. Nobody loves Assen more than the 29-year-old Italian. He would love to be on pole position. You feel that one of those Ducatis has to be on the front row. They've got to try and get away with those Aprilias. Clear track for any Aprilia here in Assen could spell trouble for the Dukes.
Yeah, Marco Bezzecchi generally, when he sees clear tarmac at the end of a first lap, he has no one ahead of him for the remainder of the Grand Prix. So often on Sundays, Bezzecchi has led from start to finish. Here is the Italian who's making his way through the fast right-hander of turn 8, and we now head up towards De Bolt. We've got the Ducatis and Pedro Acosta's KTM up the road. Here, the factory Aprilias with Bezzecchi leading Martin.
Just one front row start in the last 4 Grand Prix for Bez. Closing in the championship is Martin. A narrow gap of just 8 points coming into this round 10. It was 12 points to Martin last weekend, didn't he? Marco Bezzecchi still going, still hanging on the back of those factory Ducatis. Is Pedro Acosta. He's doing a top job once again here, isn't he? The number 37. Here we go then. Here we're going to get the first early reference lap times. Bagnaia was close to track today, wasn't he, on the outside of the chicane. Acosta it is that fires in a 1:31.224, but we have got then We've had to wait until Q2 to get our first 130 of the weekend.
Assen,
And Marco Bezzecchi on the charge. Another flyer from Bez, a 130.853. Factory Aprilia 1-2 with Jorge Martin also in the 130s. Aprilia dominant once again.
And do they look out the front row? No, they don't. Ralph Fernandez into 5th place. Ogura's currently 7th. Yeah, Bezzecchi was already a quarter of a second up on the Ducatis through the 3rd sector, and that was, of course, the start of the lap where he's so strong. Sector 4, where the Aprilias have been super quick. Marquez did exceed track limits on his lap, and he has had that first lap time of, what was it, a 131.2 deleted.
Well, he's undefeated in all practice sessions, trying to keep this golden record going here in qualifying in Assen. That was some lap that by Bezzecchi. Over a 10th clear of Martin. Just he's backed out of this corner, hasn't he, Marco Bezzecchi? Shame as well, because he was flying on this particular circuit as well. Well, he's certainly going to be a little bit battered and bruised after a heavy crash in between turns 10 and 11 yesterday, Alex Marquez. Let's get an update from Jack.
Yeah, no lap time set for Alex Marquez at the moment, and he's not in the box as well. Both bikes with the covers on. It looks as though we're not going to see him in this Q2 session. We'll have to see what it means for Alex Marquez's participation for the remainder of the weekend.
Yeah, it's been a bruising weekend. Thanks very much, Jack. That for Gresini Ducati. Fermin Aldeguer, unfortunately, already missing, ruled out with a back fracture yesterday after a real heavy crash he had on the exit of turn 11. So we might be missing both Gresini riders for the remainder of this weekend here in the Netherlands. Marco Bezzecchi then and Jorge Martin, both sharing high 130s. Here comes Ralph Fernandez. He is in the 30s himself, and we do have potentially for the second time in 4 Grand Prix, just the second time in Grand Prix history, and a pretty lockout of the front row. Bez, Fernandez and Martin, 30.8 opposed to 2 30.9s.
And it's only Pedro Acosta at the moment who is preventing an Aprilia whitewash of this qualifying session. 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 5th. With the Costa in 4th. That's the team communication to tell Marc Marquez that you're P12. I guess the reading between the lines there, that will be telling Marc Marquez that first lap you did not stand.
A bit of a head shake there from Marc as he pitched the Ducati on the right-hand side going through Steckenwald as he approaches the far end of this fast Assen circuit. We just took a little bit of a breather there for you to enjoy and listen to the world champion at work here in Assen. We were on board for Marc's best time of that Q2 session so far. He's down to a low 31, a 131.366. And that's got him up to, well, it was briefly 8th. He's now back in 9th place. Oh, his lap gone. Another lap got cancelled.
Yeah, same again.
Yeah, same again. So that's successive flying laps then that have been scrubbed off for Marc Marquez, because straight away he's been registered with a 143.9. So Marc has been pushed back down to P9.
Yeah, of course, it was difficult to see from on board on that occasion where he went wide. It was turn 13, Holger Heider on his first run that Marc Marquez went wide. We're coming up towards that part of the racetrack now for Quartararo. Turn 13 again, was it? Which is, coming through the corner that are about to click off there. Whether it must be the green on the inside of the corner that Marquez is touching. Either way, it doesn't matter. You've got to stay within the limits, and he has breached it twice. So Marc Marquez is 9th, and of course there are 3 riders behind him who haven't set a time, and it would appear that Alex Marquez is not going to. What about Fabio Quartararo as he comes across the line? He goes up onto the 2nd row of the grid in 6th place.
Yeah, and that is once again a truly unbelievable job, isn't it, by Quartararo? He's no right to be putting that Yamaha. That Yamaha has no right to be that high up the grid, given its lack of performance. But they've got a genuine superstar, haven't they, twisting the throttle. So Marc Marquez then, 2nd lap, gone. 4th lap, gone. Twice then he has exceeded track limits in that opening run, which is just going to build a bit of pressure on the world champion. We know that genuinely when he is under pressure, he has all the answers, but at the moment he is down in 10th place. He has a look at the screens. So twice then. Fast laps have gone. The 131.366 was his best of the session. That was only going to be good enough for 9th spot. And Bastianini with a 131.7 is currently at the back of the 3rd row in 9th.
Yeah, just a line from Cassini. They've just gone public on social media, on Twitter. Despite a positive FP2, Alex Marquez and the team deciding not to take part, as we heard from Jack in Q2, and to rest in view of the upcoming session. So their current position is they're not withdrawing for the weekend yet.
Which is good news as far as Alex Marquez is concerned. I mean, Q2 is one of the most high-risk sessions of the weekend, where you're in time attack mode. You've got to go gung-ho for the hot lap. This is going to be turn 13, and this is where we're going to see Marc Marquez.
Shortly, essentially.
He'd have known that. Marc would be well aware of that, as he just strayed on the inside curve there through 13. So yeah, just giving himself a bit of work to do. Of course, Alex Marquez, having got through into Q2, even though he's not going to register a lap time, he would be starting the sprint on the Grand Prix in 12th place. Yellow flags are out at turn 12. Pekka Bagnaia, Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin are on the charge. Bagnaia at the moment 7th. Is he on the front row? He certainly is. He's in the 30s himself. Pekka Bagnaia then with a 130.930 breaks up the Aprilia party, but for how much longer? Because Jorge Martin charging here potentially towards what would be his 21st MotoGP pole position. Bezzecchi's lap time has gone away, but Martin, look at this, from the 2024 world champion, it is a beaut. A 130.812 has put Martin on pole. He did it behind his teammate Marco Bezzecchi, who was the perfect outline, the perfect reference ahead of him there. Martin then snatches provisional pole.
I was about to say, we saw a KTM going slowly. Once again, it's Pedro Acosta. He was on a very good lap. I think he might have been the rider that brought out those yellow flags, which impeded Bezzecchi, and yet another KTM breaking down on Pedro Acosta. Same place.
Well, I'm speechless.
Yeah, this is not a replay of free practice 2, viewers. This is the second time this morning that Acosta's KTM has given up the ghost at turn 12.
Exact same. The engine is still running. You can hear it still running. He's back in neutral, and he's just along for the ride. Oh. Your heart goes out. You've got to spare a thought for Acosta, because every time that KTM runs, he is wringing the absolute neck out of it. He is giving his all. I mean, he's been the standout rider, hasn't he, for the last 2-3 years at KTM. But at what point does the patience snap? At what point does he just lose his cool? He's done a very good job of being rather diplomatic about all these sort of tech issues, but he's going to blow eventually. I mean, this is embarrassing for KTM.
Here comes Marco Bezzecchi, who misses out by 3/100ths of a second. I think he was the rider. Those momentary yellow flags flashed in front of Bezzecchi, so he had to bail out of the previous lap. And is that going to potentially cost him pole position? It's still Martin, Bezzecchi, Fernandez, the front row of the grid. Ogura's going to have to go some from there to get himself onto the front row. He climbs one place into 5th.
2 mechanicals in 2 days, Costa. Any points in Brno? 2 mechanicals in less than 2 hours here in Assen. Ralf Fernandez back on the front row, cracking lap, a 130.915. That has squeezed Bagnaia back onto row 2 in 4th place. Super close is on those first 2 rows. Not even a 10th and a half covering the top 6. Martin, Bezzecchi, Ralf Fernandez. Your second all the pretty front row in the last 4 Grand Prix potentially. Row 2 currently Bagnaia, Ogura and the Gian Antonio. Acosta, who's out of this session, frustratingly out of this session once again through absolutely no fault of his own. He's going to be hoping that he can hold on to 7th place right now and lead that 3rd row of the grid.
Marc Marquez then is still in 11th place without a legal lap. I'm sure he'll have left plenty of margin that time through turn 13. The current estimation is that it will only lift him up 1 place from 11th to 10th. Let's see if the world champion can produce something special to the final chicane, where he has already crashed once already this weekend. The line is approaching him now. Marc Marquez climbs 4 places ahead of his future teammate. He's now 7th.
Which would be a season worst qualifying for the reigning world champion. His lowest so far this year was a 6th at his beloved Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Ralf Fernandez, Jorge Martin. This is not a given that Martin's going to secure that 21st MotoGP pole position, because Fernandez is on the charge once again. This is sector 4, where the Aprilia works a treat. The Aprilia works a dream in this part of the circuit. Through the timber chicane he goes. Ralf Fernandez then. Currently, Ogura's gone 2nd, and Ralf Fernandez does snatch it late peloton. A 1:30.769 from Ralph Hernandez. Aprilia now lock out not just the front row, they lock out the top four.
Oh, it's lap times been cancelled though, Matt. Lap time cancelled for track limits. They do still look out the top four, but Ralph Hernandez, I think, has just seen it on the screen. He's gone for a provisional pole, back down to fourth again.
Wow, drama in the extreme here in this session in Q2 here in Assen. So Ralph Hernandez thought he had set the pole time here, but now it's been reinstated.
It's back on our screens again.
Oh no, now it's back. No, hang on, they've got a bit of a timing glitch here.
Final chicane was where he breached it, turn 18, so that's coming out of the Gert Timmer chicane, and that with meters to the finish line and meters away from pole position. Ralph Hernandez touching the green.
He's on pole. No, he isn't. He's on pole. No, he isn't. Unfortunately, Raul, you aren't at this stage. What about Marc Marquez trying to get himself on those first two rows of the grid, and he can't do it. Marc Marquez can't do it. A 1:31.131. A shake of the head there from Davide Tardozzi, and that's game over. Marc Marquez, then, it is going to be a season worst starting position of 7th on the grid for the world champion, stuck behind an armada of Aprilias. Aprilia then, what a day they have had. Marco Bezzecchi's domination of this Dutch Grand Prix is finally ended. He's going to be on the front row of the grid row in 3rd place. But after taking their historic first ever all front row in Mugello recently, Aprilia with Jorge Martin on pole for the 21st time in his career. His first pole since Australia back in 2024. This is the decisive moment. How close is it? Oh, just the right-hand side of that rear tyre. Just scraping the green. That has cost Ralph Hernandez pole position. It has not denied, though, Aprilia their best ever qualifying performance. Martin is your pole sitter here in Assen. The front row, and another Aprilia lockout. Ogura 2nd, Bezzecchi 3rd, and for the first time in Grand Prix history, 4 Aprilias will start from the top 4 with Ralph Hernandez in 4th place. Catch him if you can.
Yeah, there is no catching them at the moment so far this weekend. Bezzecchi's unbeaten weekend is over, but Aprilia's is not. And a first Aprilia pole for Jorge Martin, who felt like the outsider of the 4 Aprilias coming into this session. But never underestimate Martin's ability to produce magic on a qualifying lap. MotoGP pole number 37.
Marc Marquez then, for only the 2nd time as a factory Ducati rider, finds himself on the 3rd row of the grid. Tough that for Jorge Martin.
Yeah, of course, pole number 21. It's his 37th podium that he's chasing tomorrow. Getting a little caught up in the excitement of Martin's first pole position for the Nuali factory, and Ralph Hernandez will be feeling a little bit bitter with envy with that, because he's the odd one out on the front row of the grid, and all the pretty front row he has to settle for 4th place. The pace was there, but through mere millimetres, Ralph Hernandez goes from pole down to 4th.
It's another absolute calamity for KTM. Pedro Acosta, through no fault of his own. Last weekend in Assen, there was no points after technical issues came his way in the sprint on the Grand Prix. More issues for Acosta, see him dumped down to 8th place in that session. He's going to be starting this Grand Prix alongside his future factory Ducati teammate Marc Marquez. Pole position then, number 21 for Jorge Martin in his MotoGP career. What a turnaround this has been then for Aprilia. After a bleak Balaton and a nightmare Brno, they have locked out the first 4th place on the grid. As mentioned, Jorge Martin's first pole since the Australian Grand Prix in 2024. Let's get the thoughts of Paolo Bonora with Jack.
Yeah, Paolo, just confirming there, Aprilia 1, 2, 3 and 4. Yes, absolutely, you have locked out the top 4 spots after, well, a nightmare week for Marco, for Aprilia, a nightmare month really, where things have spiralled ever so slightly. What a response that is.
Yeah, absolutely. After 2 difficult races, this is such an important result, and congrats to all our 4 riders. They showed that they have good confidence with the bike, and the bike is very good here in Assen. So very, very, very happy. It was necessary such a result here after 2 difficult races.
Congrats, thanks.
Yeah, 2 very, very difficult races indeed for Aprilia, but they are back. First ever top 4 qualifying lockout for the Nuali factory. 36 front row start for Jorge Martin in MotoGP, over 600 days since Australia in 2024 since his last pole. Ogura does then indeed make it back-to-back front row starts for Trackhouse. Marco Bezzecchi, last time he started on the front row was from pole in Mugello. What a Saturday that was. Sensational for Aprilia. In a long time since Jorge Martin has been able to pick up a Tissot watch. A case of what might have been not even inches, not even centimetres, it looked like millimetres between Rafa Fernandez and pole position. It would have been his very first, of course, in MotoGP as well, had he been able to have done a legal lap, but just straying on the green on the exit of the Timor chicane, not even on the front row of the grid. Rafa Fernandez and Marquez then off the first 2 rows for just the second time as a factory Ducati rider. The last time he was that deep on the grid was 9th at Mandalika, the Grand Prix which saw his season ended in 2025. Work to do for the world champ.
Underlining that he wasn't playing any mind games with his relatively modest expectations coming into this weekend, which he underlined after practice yesterday. He was right. He is potentially having to go into a defensive mindset this weekend. Marco Bezzecchi only missed out on pole by 33 thousandths of a second, and ultimately that first lap on the second new tyre was lost. We'll only know from Marco whether there was the brief yellow flags for Pedro Acosta going off the road when his KTM broke down, whether that impacted Bezzecchi at all. But another solid session for Bezzecchi on the front row of the grid. Once again, that is now 6 front row starts this season, and he will be out for a bit of redemption in the Saturday sprint later on.
Fair to say Ogura has no longer any qualifying woes, no longer any qualifying issues. Back-to-back front row starts in successive Grand Prix. No previous front rows before Brno last weekend. It's now a pole and a second place in the space of 7 days. So Alex Marquez then, as mentioned, despite a positive FP2, Alex decided to sit out that Q2 session with a view to hopefully him participating in the 13-lap sprint this afternoon and double the distance to 26-lap Tissot Grand Prix at the Netherlands here tomorrow. I just heard Jorge Martin there, vamos, come on, was the shout down in Parc Fermé. P1 in Parc Fermé for the first time on an RSGP. That was incredible. In Aprilia, they locked out the front row in Mugello. They locked out the podium in Le Mans. It's going to be a very disappointing weekend for the Nawali factory if they're not locking out the top 3. Jorge Martin then moved on to 21 poles, which sees him move level with Fabio Quartararo. Fabio Quartararo, most recent pole sitter here in 2025. Quartararo is going to start 9th. That is some third row of the grid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Marc Marquez 7th, Pedro Acosta 8th. The luckless Acosta, who was on the middle of the third row of the grid, never got a chance to fight for anything higher after his KTM conked out once again. And Fabio Quartararo in 9th. The second rider that came through Q1 with Quartararo, Juan Miguel Hill, head row 4 in 10th, ahead of Enea Bastianini. And as mentioned, despite the fact that Alex Marquez did not take part and set a lap time in that session because he was through to Q2, and if he is fit to start the sprint of the Grand Prix, he will do so from 12th.
So the Aprilias 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the grid. I'm sure the word respect won't need to be drilled into them again, but Aprilia have got a golden opportunity now to inflict some serious damage on Ducati in the World Championship. Ducati punished Aprilia when they made a complete mess of Brno last weekend, something their factory team did. Can Aprilia strike back? So far, so good for the Nawali factory, and Marco Bezzecchi will start from the front row of the grid. Let's get his thoughts now with Jack.
Marco, great job onto the front row of the grid for what looks like it's going to be a very interesting Aprilia battle at the front. 1, 2, 3 and 4 for the Nawali factory. How challenging does that make it going into the sprint and the race later on?
Yeah, it will be a tough one for sure, but the qualifying was good, the pace also is good, so I'm satisfied about the performance. Unfortunately, I met a yellow flag in my best attempt, but it's like this. At the end, the first row is super important. I'm very happy, very proud for how the guys worked this weekend. So thanks to them, and now we think about the sprint.
Good job, well done.
Thank you.
plenty to think about in the sprint as well for Marco Bezzecchi, because 4 in the opening 9, he has not seen the checkered flag. He's thrown away a whole bunch of valuable World Championship points on sprint Saturdays. He'll try and correct that situation from the front row of the grid this afternoon. A 1:30.845 from Bezzecchi. There was just 0.03 of a second covering the top 3. Probably felt like without the late yellow flag drama involving Pedro Acosta's touring KTM that he would have had a chance of bettering Martin's 1:30.812. Not so though the case, but Aprilia top 4 on the grid. Back-to-back front row starts in as well for Ogura. You've been brilliant all weekend so far. Let's get his thoughts with Jack down in Parc Fermé.
It's been a great week when it comes to qualifying. A career first pole position last week, now onto the front row once again in the middle of the factory boys. It feels like it's going to be a very interesting sprint later.
For sure, and I hope. Well, good to have another good qualifying. I mean, first row is always something makes us surprise. So, well, it was another good day. We knew that we are quite competitive yesterday, but always the qualifying is a bit tricky. So yeah, happy to have a good qualifying again, and yeah, seems that everybody going fast in this track. So we'll see how it goes in sprint. Yeah.
Good luck this afternoon.
Thank you.
It was close. It was tantalisingly close to back-to-back poles for Ogura. Thanks, Jack, down in Parc Fermé. Just over 100th of a second dividing Martin and Ogura at the end of that Q2 session. Pekka Bagnaya's all-time lap record still intact from 2 years ago, the 1:30.540. The extreme heat in here in Assen this weekend, there's not anybody a chance to get close to that benchmark. Bagnaya will go from the middle of the second row in 5th. He, not much of a consolation prize, but he was the best non-Aprilia qualifier in that 15-minute session. That's very, very shortly. Then we'll hear from Jorge Martin. 8 points he is behind Marco Bezzecchi in the World Championship. Sets himself up brilliantly maybe for a record 19th sprint victory. He has the record shared on sprint wins with Marc Marquez, 18 apiece. It was a busy Parc Fermé for Aprilia. We'll get the thoughts of the Martinator very, very shortly. A brilliant lap, 1:30.812. Got great track position. Just sat on the rear tyre of Marco Bezzecchi, didn't he? Did his lap early on lap 5 of 9 in the session. Same point in the session that Pekka Bagnaya also did his best time. Pedro Acosta, I wonder what's going on inside that factory KTM garage right now. His first pole position for Aprilia, his first pole position since Phillip Island in 2024. Jorge Martin here with Jack.
Well, Jorge, congratulations. When we think of Jorge Martin, we think of electric speed, we think of pole position. So to get your first one for Aprilia, I imagine this feels like a big moment.
You know, to get my first position, first pole position with Aprilia, but to get here in Assen, I think in the cathedral is so emotional. I think it's one of the biggest things you can make in a career, no? To make pole position in Assen. So I'm so happy. Today will be a difficult race. It seems like Marco is a bit ahead of us, but we are closing that gap, so let's try to understand how to be better in the sprint.
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks Jorge, thanks Jack. It is a special place to take a pole position, isn't it? The cathedral of speed. There was the high speed crash yesterday for Martin at 230 kilometers an hour going through turn 12. Well, when he was upright and on 2 wheels today, he was unbeatable. As Aprilia's domination of this Grand Prix of the Netherlands continues, Bezzecchi fastest in all 3 practice sessions, and Jorge Martin will lead a grid away in the Sprint and Grand Prix that has been dominated by Aprilia. All 4 Aprilias will start from the top 4 here in Assen. Super fast venue, narrow, technical, with the Aprilias working wonders. Jorge Martin then on pole for the first time for the Nawali factory.
And pole number 21 in his MotoGP career. Martin, Ogura and Bezzecchi and all Aprilia front row. The World Championship leader not helped by a poor time yellow flag for him. Ralph Fernandez completing that Aprilia lockout of the top four. Ducati's 5th and 6th, Bagnaia and Gian Antonio. Marc Marquez, who had his own track limits problems, 7th. Acosta with more KTM unreliability, 8th, ahead of Quartararo, Mir, Bastianini. And Alex Marquez sitting out Q2 to qualify 12th, but the hope is that he will start the sprint later on. Frankie Morbidelli 13th, of course, that will become 16th on the grid tomorrow, but he will start the sprint from P13. After being knocked out in that qualifying one session. Marco Bezzecchi's BMW M Award advantage is now 8 points over Fabio Di Gianantonio. Marc Marquez in 3rd place. Pedro Costa 4th, and Martin, with his first pole position in Aprilia colours, lifts himself up now into 5th place. Ralph Fernandez 7th after his home breach of track limits cost him a first MotoGP pole.
So another historic milestone for Aprilia on a sprint Saturday. Fresh off the back of their first ever top 3 lockout in qualifying in Mugello recently. Well, they've had a clean sweep now of the top 4. In just over 3 hours' time, we will be in sprint action here in the Grand Prix of the Netherlands in baking hot conditions. Well, on his last visit here to Assen in 2024, Jorge Martin was 2nd in the sprint, 2nd in the Grand Prix. Can he go one better? Well, he's given himself a great chance because the Martinator back on pole position for the first time on Aprilia. The Martinator will lead the field away after a brilliant performance in Q2. Marquez is a sprint that is going to finish in stunning style for Marc Marquez. Can there too many better sights than Mugello? This is Bagnaia territory. He has not lost the Grand Prix since 2021. Time to get set for the 23-lap Grand Prix of Italy. The green flag waving at the back. Lights out, and we're racing here in MotoGP. Marquez is going to run it hot, surely. Bagnaia is going to cut to a tight line. How did Marquez break for that first corner? Bagnaia attacks in the turn 2. Bagnaia leads briefly. It's Alex in 3rd place.
Morbidelli, a good starter. He's ahead of Quartararo for 4th.
But it is Bagnaia that looks like he's going to lead at the end of lap 1. It's all about the slipstream. Marc has hit the front in the slipstream.
So Marc Marquez does regain the lead on this 2nd lap.
And Marquez and Bagnaia lean on each other as they drop down through Casanova. Here comes Bagnaia. Marc goes in hot. Bagnaia behind Marc. Is he going to get it stopped into San Donato? He's going to run in a little bit wide, and Marc seizes the lead back. Oh, they touch. Clear contact between Bagnaia and Marc.
Marc Marquez back up the inside now of Pecco Bagnaia.
Oh, Bagnaia clips the rear tyre, and Marc. We're on board with Bagnaia. And now he's in the slipstream of Alex.
Afraid to let it show.
so he's recovered second place. On the inside of Marc into turn 2. This is absolutely brilliant. Bagnaia closes the door.
Bagnaia there lost the front on the way through Bezzecchi, and that does bring Marquez alongside.
He's trying to get some slipstream now. Once again, it's not the sprint yesterday. Alex briefly does lead into Standinato, but he runs in a little bit too hot. Bagnaia back at the front. Oh, Alex, that's aggressive on the inside of Bagnaia. There was room there, and he took it. We're on board now with Marc. He's going to go side by side with Bagnaia. He's down. I don't know if Morbidelli's taking Vinales out. I think that's going to be a long lap incoming, isn't it, for Frankie. Maverick Vinales is frustrated. He's got some great slipstream here. It's Marc in the braking zone with Alex. There's nothing that Alex can do about it. Gian Antonio, it's one thing to catch Pecco Bagnaia.
Gian Antonio is taking away that third place down to Casanova Simelli.
Bagnaia bumped off the podium in Mugello. This is game over. And number 93 makes it win. Number 93. Alex Marquez does just about hold on to second place behind Fabio de Gian Antonio. Pecco Bagnaia will be crestfallen. Marc Marquez, a factory Ducati rider, in front of the Ducatisti, celebrating a win in Mugello.
Mugello belongs to Marc, as 93 makes it 93 wins in a glittering career.
Marquez, magnificent 7 wins in the sprints in 2025.
Marc tastes gold once again at his beloved Motorland.
It has been scorching hot all weekend here in Motorland. Round 8 of 22 this season. He was on pole yesterday. He dominated the sprint yesterday as well. Can Marc Marquez win here in Aragon on Sunday? And we're racing in MotoGP here in Motorland. Alex Marquez slots into second place. Good start by Bagnaia from the second row. He's immediately up into P3.
Morbidelli behind the 2 KTMs of Acosta and Binder. Acosta, the leading KTM, running 4th.
Aldeguer, who we saw super strong and aggressive. So Aldeguer up into 5th. Marc Marquez made the perfect start, and now he's in position A at the front of this Grand Prix.
Acosta then up the inside of Pecco Bagnaia on that hard front tyre, which is giving him that support and that confidence, but he does go a little bit hot and a little bit wide, and Bagnaia was able to regain that 3rd place.
Bagnaia's coming under big pressure once again from Acosta. This time around he's going through, using the extra support of that hard front tyre down the hill into turn 12. Acosta this time has gone through up into P3.
Bagnaia with the slipstream into turn 16. He's able to park it up the inside of Pedro Acosta. Pedro Acosta is now right on the rear tyre of Bagnaia. As the other KTM is defending, so one KTM goes forwards, Acosta to third, Binder goes backwards though, back to sixth place. So this was Morbidelli going in hot into turn 5 and relinquishing that 5th place back to Brad Binder.
Oh, it's Binder. Binder's gone down. Binder slides out of contention. Binder then tips off going through turn 3, out of P5.
Here comes Aldeguer. Aldeguer attacks into turn 13 and he catches Morbidelli out.
Morbidelli goes on the inside of Aldeguer. They rub knees, they rub elbows. Oh, this is all happening at nearly 350 kilometres an hour. As Aldeguer charges through on Morbidelli. Frankie ain't going to take this quad line down though, is it? He's going to try and pounce straight back into turn 15. Oh! Elbow to elbow. There was big contact there, wasn't there? They started going through the gearbox.
Fastest in FP1, fastest in practice, fastest in FP2, pole position, sprint win, the perfect weekend at home.
Marquez is a winning machine once again here in Motorland. What a season, what a year, what a moment it is for the Marquez family. A brilliant job by Pecco Bagnaia. He finishes 3rd.
A 7th MotoGP victory at his beloved Aragon.
Alex comes out of the final corner. He wins his first sprint of 2025. We have a new sprint winner. Welcome to the Tissot Grand Prix of the United Kingdom.
British Grand Prix.
The green flag clears at the back. It's lights out and we're racing here. Oh, he's gone down! Alex Marquez, there's going to be no dream double. The fairy tale over at the very first corner.
Marquez leads from Fabio Quartararo.
Bagnaia started in P3.
Oh, someone's down.
Oh, it's Marquez! Can you believe what you are seeing here at Silverstone? Red flag is out.
Oil's down somewhere on the racetrack.
This was Frankie Morbidelli's crash damage Ducati GP24. Liquid spilled out onto the circuit was the reason why the red flag was waved. Marc Marquez has then got his bike back to the pits.
And they're ready. It looks like they're the other bike for Alex Marquez. The red flag brought out, less than 3 laps completed, so the original grid is reformed again.
We are set for the Tissot Grand Prix of the United Kingdom, Part 2.
Good afternoon and welcome live trackside for what is the third round of the 2026 FIM Harley-Davidson Bagger World Cup, which comes from the legendary TT circuit Assen in the Netherlands. We have plenty of iconic circuits on the calendar, having started stateside in Kota and then tackled Tuscany at Mugello. And we still have got 3 rounds remaining, meaning that this is the halfway point of the inaugural season of action. The championship as it stands has Archie McDonald at the front, 3 points ahead of Eric Granado and 9 ahead of Oscar Gutierrez. Jake Lewis sits 4th ahead of Filippo Ravelli, Corey West and our most recent race winner, Andrea Iannone. Travis Wyman is next up ahead of Cody Wyman, Dimasaki Batama rounding out the order. Some news coming into the round is that Joe Rascal Racing have parted ways with Cody Wyman, and a very familiar face is in for him. Jordi Torres debuts this weekend as he gets down to business in the Bagger World Cup. There's a couple of familiar dulcet tones in commentary too. You're up in the company of myself, Kiko Giles, and Neil Morrison for what is qualifying coming up here at Assen with a sun-soaked crowd ready for some Harley-Davidson action. Neil, round 3 of this brand new series is well up and running. Qualifying, it is crunch time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well, Kiko. Great to be here at the TT Circuit Assen, and you can see the grandstand's not quite packed to capacity at this very moment, but I'm sure over the course of this qualifying session they will start to fill up. Underneath the roof of the grandstand, I think is the most popular spot here in the Netherlands, because we have temperatures expected to reach around 36, 37 degrees centigrade here this afternoon. It is punishing weather that we have here in the Netherlands. Not quite what we were coming to expect, not quite what you associate with the Dutch TT either, but what a great place for the baggers to come. First time we see these bikes in action. Well, the first time was yesterday, but the first time on screen we'll see them is in this session coming right up.
It's been really hot this weekend, hasn't it, Neil? I mean, it is slightly ludicrous that we are at our most northerly destination in the entirety of the MotoGP calendar, and we have experienced real field temperatures of 40 degrees. We're going back with suntan and in some cases sunburn. It's been unbelievably warm up here in the Netherlands. We have had action, as you said, yesterday as well, FP1, FP2. Eric Granado, a 1:41.599, the reference time ahead of Oscar Gutierrez, and Andrea Iannone on his comeback to Assen on a 42.5. So 1 second covering the top 3, and this is our look at the most recent Bagger World Cup winner with a fantastic helmet saying kind regards, which is also on his Assen as well.
It is indeed Andrea Iannone. What a spectacular return it was to the MotoGP World Championship paddock. Iannone was in great form after his victory at Mugello. When was that? About 4 weeks ago. And yeah, just great to have him in the paddock. We need big characters in this series. Harley-Davidson, I think, likes to have big characters, and Iannone most certainly is that. And you have to say, Iannone, after his performance in the first round of his season, the second round overall, is actually going to be a real contender, isn't he, for this World Cup Championship at the end of the year, because with the 4th place and the 1st place, he showed that he has got the speed to fight with the best of them.
He has got the speed to fight with the best of them, as has this rider here, Archie McDonald. Worth noting, the Joe Rascal team will have a special livery. That's not Archie McDonald, I should say, that's Jake Lewis, but the Joe Rascal team do have a special livery this weekend, and it is very much close to Archie McDonald, who obviously lost his brother. We touched on this last time out, Toby McDonald, due to mental health. Of the team this weekend running a special livery in support of the push-up challenge, which I know is something that Archie McDonald is doing throughout the next few weeks and months in order to raise funds for mental health. And yeah, so far so very good. Do check out Archie McDonald's Instagram page and all of his social media, and you get the full story.
Yeah, absolutely. Really nice for Joe Rascal Racing to be running that special colour scheme here this weekend to raise some money and raise awareness as well for some charities with Push for Better, I think is the name of the charity, who look to raise awareness for mental health. And just have to say, great. I think the way Archie has conducted himself since that personal tragedy has been really admirable. And yet there you can see the number 69, the number 51, Eric Granado as well, his teammate in revised colours with the yellow and black on the side of their bike. It hasn't been a straightforward weekend, has it, Kiko, for that team or for Archie McDonald. He had a massive crash yesterday, which actually brought out the red flags, and he certainly is not anywhere near fully fit coming into qualifying day.
No, it was quite a big one. I think it was out towards turn 6 and 7, wasn't it, at the end of the Wienschlang, where they're just coming down now. The fast turn right, the fast turn 6 and 7, the right-hander into the left-hander. Archie McDonald's Instagram, he had all the pictures up there. I did look through my fingers for that one, because he has got some serious scuff marks and burn marks all over him, so hopefully everyone keeps it wheels up. We also had another crash that brought out the red flag yesterday for Bezzecchi in the Nitty GP racing team. He had another fast crash, and really the Bagger World Cup, they are definitely finding a limit here at Assen. The track temperatures for them yesterday was probably and arguably some of the worst of the day, because it was so greasy out there, Neil.
Yeah, we saw quite a lot of crashes in all the categories yesterday, Moto2, Moto3 and MotoGP as well. And yeah, this Baggers World Cup was no exception, but great to see the number 69 of Archie McDonald out on track here in this session despite those injuries, and he said he's just going to have to grit his teeth and try and bring some points on the board. I think it is already a bit of a damage limitation job for Archie this weekend.
Not the birthday present that he was hoping for. Turned 20, I believe, just last week, 22nd of June. So, well, last week, this week, all the same, really. Archie McDonald now 20, cracking on a little bit, isn't he, Neil? I jest, of course, he's one of the youngest, if not the youngest out there.
Yeah, he certainly is. Great to see the number 81 back on our screens.
100%.
Jordi Torres, who has joined the Joe Rascal Racing squad. As Kiko mentioned at the start of the broadcast, number 81 was originally down to race in this series from the start in Kota, but some last-minute sponsorship issues meant that the team he was originally supposed to enter this championship with wasn't able to go racing, so Jordi had to watch from the sidelines. But then this opportunity became available, and Jordi jumped at it with both hands. He's had limited experience on one of these Harley-Davidson bagger machines coming into this event. I think he was in Oschersleben in Germany last week, where he had to get some kilometers on the board before he jumped straight into the World Cup. I think it was a limited amount of time. He said to us on Thursday around 20 laps, or maybe just a little bit over that. So Jordi still very much getting up to speed with these machines, but he's been no slouch over the weekend so far. He was 5th fastest yesterday in FP2. And Jordi coming to Assen, a track he knows very well from his days in Moto2, World Superbike, and of course Moto E.
Yeah, 1:43.578 was the time that Jordi Thomas was able to lay down yesterday. So just keep that in mind for a reference time as we have a look at Filippo Ravelli sliding on through the number 27. This is fast on one of these bagger machines as well, fast and heavy. That's been one of the problems with these crashes. The bikes have got so much momentum, really, when they are barrel rolling through the gravel trap. That's why we've had a couple of red flags, because of air fences and the like, and bits of bike everywhere. So these things are fast anyway. They're very fast and heavy round here. So just keep an eye on any misdemeanors that we do experience out there. Already straight down to business, a 1:41.413. I make that the fastest time of the weekend. That's not the biggest surprise, I've got to say, because we are of course getting faster and faster the more time and track time that these guys have on the bikes at these new circuits that these bikes have never been to before. There's no reference from the King of the Bagger series over in the States.
Yeah, and just 2 sessions for these guys yesterday, so every session you do expect that kind of incremental improvement as they get up to speed at the particular circuit on this bike, on this setup. Eric Granado has just gone fastest with the 41.2. Again, that is the fastest time we saw this weekend, or we have seen this weekend so far. Granado, for what it's worth, was nearly a full second clear of Gutierrez and Iannone in yesterday's FP2 section. He has been pretty much the rider to beat so far, so it will be interesting to see whether Granado can back up what we saw at Mugello, where he was so strong. He has had 2 pole positions from 2 rounds so far this season. He's looking to make it 3 from 3 here today.
Indeed, he has been really fast, and as far as qualifying has been concerned in 2026, still though yet to really make it count in the races, as we clap eyes on Oscar Gutierrez, who's slithering through the snake section at the end of this track. You're now down towards Ramshoek and what will be the final chicane. Well, we've seen plenty of chicanes deciding races here at Assen. It has been the iconic final sector, the iconic final chicane here at Assen. Obviously the pack is here for the first time, but I wouldn't be too surprised if later on we do see a big battle going down into there. Will it involve this rider here, Andrea Iannone? At the moment, it's 4 tenths under the best time at the moment. This will put him into the 140s if he's able to hold it the first 140 that time of the weekend, and indeed he does. A 140.970. Andrea Iannone is on provisional pole after the first 5 or so minutes of this session.
Yeah, Iannone absolutely smashed the second sector, which is down the Wienslang through those fast right and lefts. One of the most physical points on the entire calendar, you feel. Just the speed you're going, the way you have to throw the bike around at such high speeds, close to 150, 160 miles an hour. Iannone well versed in that from his days in World Superbike, of course, and in MotoGP. Iannone on course here for a maiden pole position in just his second round in this Baggers World Cup. He's got a special crash helmet. He could well have a special result here, but it's far from over, because we have some riders going quickly, especially the riders on our screens. Jordi Torres is looking to improve on fit. We've got a red crash helmet for Eric Granado on our timing screens as well.
It is worth noting for Andrea Iannone, as you say, Neil, has been here recently at Assen with World Superbikes. It's not like when he came back in Mugello and won that he hadn't actually been to Mugello for so long, at least in World Championship and competitive levels. But Andrea Iannone has had recent experience here at Assen. It wasn't particularly the highlight of his season in either year 24 or 25, but he's got plenty of experience around here. If I remember correctly, a Moto2 pole sitter here, I think back in 2010. He's definitely got the pace, he's definitely got the experience around here. Look at Eric Granado though, he's got the experience as well. He was pretty handy around here in Moto E. He's coming through Ram's Hook. This is the run down towards that final chicane. And then Eric Granado, as out of shape as it all looks, he keeps it tidy through part 1 and 2 of the chicane, out across turn 18, over the curve, and now over the line. Does he go provisional pole? Oh yes he does, and he finds a lot of time in that final sector. 140.655, the goalpost move once again.
Yeah, you almost switched into Dutch there for a minute there, the goal posts. Eric Granado, nearly a full second faster than the times that he was doing yesterday in FP2. We really are seeing some impressive performances here. Granado and Iannone raising the bar in this Baggers World Cup so far in this qualifying session. There's a replay of Archie McDonald coming through the GT chicane.
Oh yes, ride it cowboy, right out over the curves, light it up and carry on as if nothing happened at all. Brilliant stuff for Archie McDonald. That 69 was sideways on there. Brilliant stuff. McDonald at the moment is 7th place. You've got to say, Neil, it's amazing he's even out there. His crash yesterday, we didn't see it, but we saw the outcome of it, and he is hurt.
He is hurt, yeah, and it wasn't just the fact that he's roughed himself up and beaten himself up in that crash. He also wasn't able to make it out and set a time in free practice 2 yesterday. This is the first time that he's been here to the TT Circuit Assen. It is a very technical circuit to learn, and while he's shown real ability at doing that at high speed in our previous visits to Kota and Mugello, I think when you hamstring yourself a little bit like that on a Friday, it's going to be a big disadvantage. So Archie McDonald really up against it here this weekend.
Been chatting to some of the rookies across Moto3 and Moto2 that are likewise coming here for the first time, and they all say the same thing, particularly the ones in Moto2, that all the other tracks they seem to be able to work it out quickly and reference, and they've got braking markers and the like, whereas here Assen is a circuit predominantly based on feel, on flow, on how you are at one with the bike or not so at one with the bike, and particularly for the likes of Jose Antonio Ueda and Ty Furusato, who've made that big step up from Moto3 and Moto2, to see how impressive they've been with all this. So much more horsepower, Neil, in Moto2 around here. It has been a big kudos to them, and to relate that to where I'm going, to see Archie McDonald there in 7th, never been here before, no experience around here before, that is very impressive considering what also happened yesterday.
Yeah, it really is. Actually caught up with Archie on Thursday and was asking him, how do you do it? How do you turn up to a track and learn it so quickly? And he said it's just a case of watching as many videos, onboard videos, as possible, and just trying to have almost that muscle memory before you've even set foot on the track before, where it seems kind of natural. You almost know exactly where the pitch-in is and where you have to get on the acceleration. So he's been certainly doing his homework so far this year, and he will need to lean into that that research when he goes racing later on today. We have a slightly revised schedule for this weekend. Race 1 will come up this afternoon after the MotoGP sprint, and then we've got race 2 tomorrow afternoon rather than tomorrow morning after the MotoGP race. So once MotoGP is over on Sunday, you'll want to stick around because Baggers Race 2 will finish off the weekend.
Yeah, exactly that. We get underway around 4 o'clock later with the live coverage for race 1, and then tomorrow it's well late. We have to scroll through a few pages of the schedule and running order to find where we're on, Neil. It's at 3:20 local time, lights out for the race, which is over 9 laps here at Assen at 3:30. So we'll be well into the media scrums for MotoGP by then, but we'll be up here perched in commentary, bringing you all things FIM Bagger World Cup related. So as the fans flock in, it's a massive, massive weekend of Dutch motorsport. It is one of the, if not the biggest outside sporting event on the Dutch calendar in 2026. So really good to see that on the debut for the Bagger World Cup here at Assen, it is a good crowd that has stayed behind, even if we are technically in the lunch break for everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said at the start of the broadcast, a lot of people will be trying to take some shelter just because the heat here is so strong. Not necessarily used to temperatures in excess of 30 degrees in this part of the world, or in most parts of Europe, to be fair. But that is proven to be a bit of a challenge for spectators as well as riders. And just a quick overview of what we've seen so far. Granado leads Iannone by 0.3 of a second. Then we've got Gutierrez 0.7 back. Filippo Ravelli doing another fine job in 4th, 1.3 off the provisional pole time. And Jordi Torres, first qualifying session in this category, is currently 5th. So decent job there for the Spanish Elvis.
Just worth noting, Neil, that back on the temperature front, we're well versed to hot temperatures because there's a lot of hot air normally around us in the commentary box. Carrying on, 8 minutes just under to go, and plus a minute or so at the end of it with the flying lap that will still be alive. We have got the Bagger World Cup. This is crunch time really now. 1:40.655 is the reference time, but you just know that there's a little bit more left in it. I'm not sure whether we'll get down to the 1:39s. That might be an ask too far, but a 1:40.655, it is still the fastest time of the weekend thus far as we light it up and fire it down the Bienenstang with Jordi Torres, who is half a second off through that first split. At the moment, 3/10 split Granado and Iannone. It's another 4.5 back from Iannone to Gutierrez. That's your provisional front row thus far. And then Filippo Ravelli there in 4th, 5th for Jordi Torres, who we're watching on your screen, and Travis Wyman there in 6th place. McDonald back on the 7th row of the grid ahead of Dimas Ekipitama. Both of those were crashes yesterday. Jake Lewis, who is 4th in the championship as things stand, is 9th. Corey West there in 10th place, but there's still a lot of time left in this session, particularly for fast lap times.
Yeah, there certainly is, and pretty much to a rider there have been significant improvements on their times from yesterday. Oh, as Jordi Torres gets it lit up coming through the final part of this track here, through that double right section. Goodness me, he's done very well to keep it rubber side down there. Well, number 81 is finding the limits on this bike, and he was absolutely at the edge of them just there.
Yeah, that number 81 was almost at 18 because it was almost upside down. We're going to have a look at it here, I'm sure. Asking for the power. There's a lot of power in these Harley. Look at that, out wide, bringing it back across, asking for the power, stepping out and riding rodeo. Jordi Torres, well, he might have missed Kota, but he definitely put it out there on the track here at Assen, hasn't he?
Yeah, Jordi Torres was always spectacular, wasn't he, when he was in Moto 2, World Superbike and Moto E. He has a good record around this TT Circuit Assen in years gone by. He had 5 podiums here in the Moto E category, and yeah, looking to put that experience into good use. You have to imagine, Kiko, Torres will probably be looking at what Andrea Iannone did at Mugello and thinking, well, Iannone can do that. I can maybe do something similar, especially considering he has such recent experience around some of the tracks that we're going to in the Moto E category.
Yeah, you've got to say that Jordi Torres is perhaps not quite the same profile as Andrea Iannone, but he's definitely been fighting for titles as recently, or more recently than Andrea Iannone. We'll just have to wait and see exactly how Jordi Torres does adapt. At the moment, half a second off through the second sector, so he's finding time every single time he goes out there at the moment. How far off is he at the moment? He's 8/10 off Filippo Ravelli and just over a second off the front row. So Jordi Torres, with each passing lap, is going to be getting more and more up to speed, and we've seen in races as well, Neil, they can also be different. The races, yes, we have some slightly larger gaps in the Bagger World Cup qualifying sessions, but as far as races are concerned, it can be close on the opening laps.
Yeah, exactly. When you have a rider just up ahead of you, that is a really useful reference. You can just tuck into their slipstream and tag along a little bit, especially if there is some battling up at the front. I'm sure Jordi will be hoping to do that from a place on the provisional second row of the grid as he jumps up to 4th, just 1 second off Eric Granado's pole time. And you have to say, after such a limited amount of time on these bikes, to be just 1 second off Granado at this stage of the season for Jordi Torres is pretty good going.
Yeah, Jordi Torres is right there. He's knocking on the door of the top 3, and he could do a lot worse than actually just follow them for the first few laps of this afternoon's race 1 and learn how the others are adapting to these big bagger machines and exactly what they're doing that he hasn't yet worked out yet by virtue of just not having enough time on the bike. We pick up Andre Iannone this lap so far. Nothing to really write home about. Iannone. He's on for P2 as things stand. Just have to wait and see where this lap puts him. The last half of this lap is a big area where you can make up a lot of time by virtue of bravery, Neil.
Yeah, it really is. It's all about whether you have comfort, whether you have stability as well. In some respects, the size of these bikes might actually help you just a little bit through here to keep everything a little more stable. You see in some of the lower categories how unsettled the bikes can be through Hoga Heider, that really fast switch of direction before pitching into the left of the Ramshoek as it breaks down into the GT chicane. I don't think this is going to be a lap that will trouble Eric Granado's provisional pole time at present. He only comes across the line and he loses further time. He was box office on track at Mugello. He was box office off it as well when he came to speak to us after Kiko in his celebratory media debrief. He was as fun and as charismatic as I can ever remember him. He was throwing down challenges to all sorts of riders. You should come and race in this series, he was saying. Casey Stoner, you love bikes with no electronics, with no electrical aids. Get yourself into this class. Valentino, get out of retirement. Come and join us here. So Iannone wants to see some more retired MotoGP stars in this category in the future. And I think as fun and as charismatic as I can ever remember him. He was throwing down challenges to all sorts of riders. You should come and race in this series, he was saying. Casey Stoner, you love bikes with no electronics, with no electrical aids. Get yourself into this class. Valentino, get out of retirement. Come and join us here. So Iannone wants to see some more retired MotoGP stars in this category in the future.
Still in the right wrist of the rider as Archie McDonald slides on through movement Mia, and this is through Hoga Heider now, as you were saying, Neil, that fast right left through Ramshoek, and then it is the Gert Timmer chicane where many a race has been won or lost. McDonald is not really on a flying lap. Gutierrez was almost flying himself coming out of turn 9 there. That was the bolt, and now he's coming through all the way through the fast lap. Gutierrez can touch here, less than 2 minutes on the clock remaining. Let's see what Oscar Gutierrez gets in that third sector. So again, Oscar Gutierrez losing a little bit of time in the second half of this lap, and he's only going to have one more flying lap until we get to see who is going to be on pole. At the moment, your provisional pole is Eric Granado, and I can tell you he's in the pit lane, so he's not going to be improving time at all. So it's a bit of a land of opportunity. But other riders here, Gutierrez and Iannone across the line, no improvements that time around. This is their final flying lap.
Yeah, it's going to be a big ask to get up and make up 0.8 of a second almost to Eric Granado. You can see the Brazilian is getting ready to go out, but he won't be setting another flying lap in this session. It's 40.655 for him or bust. I would imagine that will be enough for pole position. But let's see what the likes of Oscar Gutierrez can do on this final lap. Gutierrez wasn't here actually last year because he was injured after the first round in the Moto E World Championship, so he's a little bit ring rusty coming back to Assen after a year off. Not that you would know it, as he sits currently in third position. Just behind him. You know, he's not far away, but just not quite on that same level as Granado.
Not yet. Let's see if he can make up any time to the rest of this lap. So far, it's all grey coming through sector 2. We are 30 seconds from the checkered flag in this one, and judging by our timing monitor, Neil, there's not many personal best nor session best sectors. We've got a personal best first sector for Corey West. He's down there in 10th place at the moment, so he's looking to try and get himself on the front 3 rows. Oh, Andrea Iannone asking for all the power coming through turn 11. He is sliding it, he's definitely having fun with it. This might not be the fastest way to get around here at Assen, but he's in touch, Neil, lap after lap. This is very good for the race coming up later on.
Yeah, this is very consistent, and Iannone did lose a bit of time in that final sector when we saw him on a previous flying lap. He could get it stopped nice and tidily into the final chicane. You can see he's using the throttle to turn on the exit there. Iannone comes across this line. Will it be pole position? It will not. Offside. Another couple of tens, but second on the grid, by no means a disaster for the number 29.
Very strong stuff from Andrea Iannone there. P2 for him. Oscar Gutierrez is going to be third. I don't see anyone else who's out there. Archie McDonald is making a good fist of it here. I've got to say, personal best first sector, half a second off the fastest outright, which is done by Eric Granado, and he's in touch through the second split. So Archie McDonald, if we can hold that, will go on to the second row of the grid for sure.
Which would be a great result considering what happened yesterday.
Brilliant result considering yesterday's crash. Jake Lewis, the snake, is also on a lap here, 1.2 seconds off Eric Granado's time. That would also move him right up the grid. So we're going to have a couple of changes on the second row. I think the front row is all about set. Eric Granado is going to be on pole, barring a second half of the lap from the gods for Archie McDonald and Jake Lewis, which isn't going to happen. Eric Granado makes his way down through the final sector and into the chicane, but really what we need to be doing is having a look at Archie McDonald, because McDonald is 1.3 seconds off and he's in the final sector. We'll have to wait and see exactly where he's going to end up. Archie McDonald is coming to the line very, very soon, and does move up onto the second row of the grid. That's a great job by Archie McDonald. Gives himself a few extra meters, and Archie McDonald will complete that second row in 6th place. Likewise, Jake Lewis also moves up, so Jake Lewis will go into 9th place. That's the 3rd row of the grid for him. Corey West at the very back, 3.5 seconds off. This rider on your screen, Eric Granado, who makes it 3 poles from 3-0. Great job from the Brazilian, who over 1 lap in the Harley-Davidson Bagger World Cup, no one's getting near him.
Yeah, as you said, Kiko, undefeated in qualifying for this Baggers World Cup so far this year. Impressive record that from Eric Granado. Also impressive is the fact that he's coming here on the back of 3 consecutive podiums. Consistency was never quite his strong suit in the Moto E World Championship, but switching across to Baggers machinery, apart from that little faux pas in the first race of the season in Kota when he crashed out of the fight for the lead, Raymond didn't finish 6th. He has been a model of consistency. So Granado keeping that going here. He has set himself up for a perfect chance of fighting for victory yet again here later on today for race 1.
He has been a bit susceptible though in his career too. A few unforced errors as Eric Granado. Granado so far in the last 3 races he was P2. He has been on pole in the first 3 races for the first 3 qualifying sessions of the year. His only blunder was from the lead, as you say, Neil, race 1 in the USA, and then he remounted to take 6th place. So Eric Granado, his pace has been there. He's yet to get those 25 championship points though for it. So whether or not he's going to edge a bit closer, we'll have to wait and see. But so far, so fast in qualifying trim.
Yeah, he's looked very good indeed. 3/10 of a second he had over Iannone. Gutierrez 7/10 back in 3rd. With Jordi Torres impressive in 4th. And I'm sure if you're looking at the contenders, I think you are hard pushed to look past that front row of the grid. I think that will be the victory fight. Those 3 names, then maybe Jordi Torres can jump on to the back of them.
Yeah, I think Jordi Torres has done very, very well there. With 1 second off on a 41.743. He's just 3/10 off the front row away from Oscar Gutierrez. If Torres can latch on, we know the pace is going to be quick in the race. Probably not quite on 40.6s, but there or thereabouts when it comes to you know, race trim, lap after lap. I reckon that Jordi Torres might well do a lot to do some learning this afternoon, and then it will be a case of applying tomorrow morning, Neil, because clearly we know that Jordi Torres can get his elbows out and stick with it. He might be aging a little bit now in comparison to some of the riders on the grid, but with age comes experience.
Yes, that's what I keep telling myself anyway.
Yes, for me it just weight is coming, but never mind. Thankfully I'm only 27. God knows what I'm going to look like when I'm 37.
Well, there is how it feels to get another pole position in the books. Eric Granado takes the acclaim of his family members, his team members as well. 3 from 3 for the Brazilian. It's really how to do it. Granado looking like the real deal in this Baggers World Cup so far this year. We do have a really juicy and interesting championship fight, don't we? Just 9 points covering the top 3 riders in the championship as it stands. Archie McDonald 3 clear of Granado with Gutierrez 9 back. Only 35 points back. Do we count him as a title contender?
I think we do. I think by the end of this one, and you can see Eric Granado and Andrea Iannone just down there in performa. There's Oscar Gutierrez as well, just getting his ladders off. But you can see that Andrea Iannone has obviously got the pace, he's got the speed, he's got the experience, he's got the nous, he's got the know-how, and as far as winning races goes. The question is whether or not there's some mistakes also in him, because we've seen Andrea Iannone in the past, not so much in MotoGP, let's say, but in World Superbikes in recent years, has been prone to make a couple of unforced errors. So we'll have to wait and see whether Andrea Iannone's consistency is a problem. Obviously, he came back as well, straight into action with 2 long laps to do in race 1 over in Mugello. So probably still learning the rules and learning exactly where long lap penalty loops are. I bet he'll know for this weekend.
Hope he does. Yep, there was a little bit of confusion, I think, for Iannone in the first race in Mugello. Hopefully no such dramas. We're going to pass down to our colleague Elliot York just now, because he is with the rider that qualified 3rd. Oscar Gutierrez is with help.
Oscar, great job to put it on the front after a difficult-ish day yesterday with the crash. How are you feeling first of all, and how confident are you now heading into race 1 later on and race 2 tomorrow, of course, as well?
Well, first of all, happy to be on the front row again. Yesterday was a difficult day for me. I had a massive crash on the last chicane. I had a lot of pain on my shoulder, on my neck also, but you know, we need to survive this weekend. We need points for the championship, because I did a big mistake in Mugello. I just want to say sorry to the team, because you know, it was my mistake. But you know, I'm a guy of races. I don't like so much the qualifying, but you know, I will try to make a good race and hopefully be here again.
Great job and good luck for the race later on.
Thank you.
Cheers, El. Cheers, Oscar. Yeah, it's worth just reminding ourselves that Oscar Gutierrez did have quite a big blunder last time out in Mugello, crashing very, very early on in that one, and cost himself some big points. Gutierrez came home in 10th place in the end. 6 points for that, obviously, but last out of all the finishers. So Oscar Gutierrez, you really don't want to be making the same mistake twice.
Yeah. Rider that's come through some horrible injuries over the last year, and he'll be battered and bruised for the race today. But Iannone is not a rider that's battered and bruised. He is pretty delighted, it looks like, to be 2nd on the grid, and he's in performa with help.
Andrea, great effort to put it in the middle of the front row. You must be pretty pleased with that after the win in Mugello last time out. How confident are you of trying to fight for the win here in Assen as well?
So, sincerely, here is a little bit more difficult. I struggle a little bit more, so maybe in Italy we have a little bit more help because we are at home, and I felt a good feeling, good energy from the track, from the people. But in any case, we are in front, we are ready to fight. The race always is completely different. I want to say thanks to my team, to Fabrizio and everybody. So we will see. Today it's really spicy. It's spicy, and for sure we try to do our best.
Good luck for the race later.
Ciao, guys.
Today is spicy. Neil, please fill us in on why.
I'm guessing he's referencing the temperature, the fact that it's going to...
No idea. I don't think Andrea Iannone even knows what planet he's on sometimes, but oh, we love him. He's brilliant. Andrea Iannone is always box office, as is this guy. It's 3 poles from 3. Eric Granado maybe giving us some more insight on just how it is out there, perhaps. El, down to you.
Eric, great job, congratulations. 3 poles in 3 rounds now in the Bagger World Cup. You must be super pleased, and Andrea just described it. There's spicy out there later on. How would you describe it in the race later on this afternoon?
Yes, I'm very happy. You know, from yesterday we had a great feeling on the bike. The team is doing amazing. I feel so good here in Assen. It's a really nice track and I'm enjoying a lot. For sure it will be a tough race. We have hot conditions. The track is really slippery, so we need to manage the rear tire. And yes, I did my best in the first laps, and unfortunately I couldn't do the second exit with the other tire. But anyway, we will be ready for the race, do the maximum and enjoy a lot. I hope the people here enjoy a lot also our show.
Well done, Eric, well done.
Thank you, as always, I need to say em português. Bom, fizemos ótimo trabalho, estou muito feliz com o resultado. Desde ontem me senti muito bem com a moto, a equipe está fazendo um ótimo trabalho comigo. E, bom, hoje deu o máximo nas primeiras voltas, não consegui usar o segundo pneu, a gente teve um pequeno problema, mas vamos ajustar tudo para estar preparado para a corrida e fazer um bom show para a galera. É isso aí.
Good luck for later.
Valeu, valeu.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much, Al. Eric Bernardo, your pole sitter now. Is he the favourite going into later's first race of the weekend, though? Or are we expecting Andrea Iannone to spice up a surprise, perhaps?
I think we can definitely rely upon Iannone to spice things up ever so slightly. But yeah, after what we saw yesterday, Bernardo nearly a full second clear of the rest in practice and 3/10 clear of the rest in qualifying. I definitely think he starts as favourite for this afternoon's race.
Well, I can't wait to get stuck into it. We are going to have 9 laps of Bagger World Cup action. It is going to be a belter. But these are your qualifying results, and it is Eric Bernardo who indeed does make it 3 poles from 3 ahead of Andrea Iannone, and then Oscar Gutierrez, Jordi Torres at the head of the second row, Filippo Ravadi there in 5th, Archie McDonald, battered and bruised, comes through for 6th. Dimas Akiputama at the head of the 7th row, so it's a good job done by the Indonesian. Travis Wyman, Jake Lewis and Corey West, a trio of Americans riding, rounding out the qualifying order. Sprint Saturday is continuing here at Assen. Moto 3 qualifying is up next, followed by Moto 2 and the Tissot Sprint itself. But the Bagger World Cup race 1 is coming up later on at 4 o'clock. Don't miss it. See you then. 10 of the 2026 MotoGP season comes from the most legendary circuit on our calendar. The Cathedral of Speed answers MotoGP's need as we get set for the Dutch GP. Canals and tulip fields may be traditional postcard thoughts, but it's MotoGP that paints a pretty picture this weekend. Welcome to Sprint Saturday. Nine rounds ticked off, 13 to go, including this one, and they don't get much more iconic. The TT Circuit Assen has been a staple on the MotoGP calendar ever since the championship's inauguration in 1949. And we have seen, heard and experienced just about everything possible at this legendary venue. We're counting down to the Tissot Sprint coming up at 3 o'clock local time. But between now and then, we've got the small matter of Moto3 and Moto2 qualifying, and of course we get underway with the lightweight class, and what a crowd we have got in the house to enjoy it with. Q1 is coming up, meaning that just 4 places are up for grabs to move through and join the 14 riders already through into Q2 from practice. And there's some quite tasty names coming up in this next session, and it is so important because here at Assen, yes, we may well have big group races, but qualifying can decide, make or break your MotoGP weekend. The Dutch flags are flying high. The TT Circuit Assen is gearing up for what is going to be a fantastic afternoon of MotoGP action. Coming up in this one, we've got a real star-studded lineup. Matteo Bertelli is the rider who narrowly missed out yesterday. He's ahead of Casey O'Gorman, Jesus Rios, Scott Ogden, Zen Matani, Cormac Buchanan, Ruche Moodley, Joel Esteban, Veda Patama, Nicola Carraro, Leo Ramastorfer, and the surprise in last place yesterday in practice, Valentin Peroni. Only 4 can make it through, and it's time to find out exactly who will be in the top 4 graduate places. You're in the company of myself, Kiko Giles. Lewis Sotheby is next to me. Elliot York is in pit lane. I can't wait for this one, Lewis. Good afternoon.
Afternoon to you, Kiko. Afternoon to one and all watching around the world. Yeah, tasty Q1 session coming up, including the rider 6th in the World Championship. It hasn't necessarily stopped Veda Patama so far this season. Went through Q1 in Jerez, ended up finishing in 5th place. Was knocked out in Q1 in Barcelona, still came through to finish inside the top 7. So it's by no means panic stations for Veda Patama, who was in this session by virtue of a crash in practice yesterday.
And last weekend, although he qualified 8th, he started way down on the 7th verdict grid, was straight into the top 6 in the opening laps in the lead group. Veda Patama can come through if qualifying doesn't go his way, as can Casey O'Gorman. The problem that Casey has had is that actually it's not so much the speed, it's the staying on 2 wheels, Lewis. A few too many crashes in 2026, but he is a rookie and he's a fast one.
Yeah, fast but a little airy, hasn't he, in recent times. Casey O'Gorman crashing out of the leading group in Brno. It was a fantastic leading group to watch with 2 rookies involved in it. Should have been 3 in the latter stages, unfortunately for O'Gorman. No fractures as a result of that crash, and we understand no further injuries done by his crash yesterday in practice. He will also be heavily favoured to come through this session.
Joel Esteban, for the 3rd time in 5 GPs, finds himself in Q1, and just to represent his roller coaster of a qualifying season a bit more, he's been a pole sitter over in Guyana, and I'm fairly sure he came through Q1 that day as well. So Joel Esteban, no stranger to the front of the grid, the back of the grid, and just about everything in between.
Yeah, that's his only Q1 success so far this season. His 2 other Q1 appearances have left him down in 20th place on the grid. Esteban, I guess, a surprise to come through this session. Both of the level of MTA, KTM are in this Q1 session. Matteo Bertelli is in this session too. He's also been on the floor so far this weekend.
And you could say that that crash over at Turn 1 yesterday was one of the reasons why he did find himself in this session, because it cost him right at the end of practice on Friday afternoon, hence why he's having to go through Q1. But he's one of the favourites to go through, as is Valentin Peroni. Veda Patama, as you said, Lewis, is right up in the top 5 in the championship, so he should really be coming through. But who else? Who's the one rider who may well be able to make the difference? Who's the one rider who may well be a surprise to join them?
Well, the rider I'm going to be looking out for very closely in this session is Valentin Peroni for the Tech 3 KTM squad. He was last of all, down in 26th place at the end of a miserable practice session for the Argentine yesterday. There's no question Valentin Peroni has pedigree, because he was on the podium for for the first time in his Grand Prix career here 1 year ago. I guess after the events of yesterday afternoon, the only way quite literally is up.
Really is. He can't get much lower, can he? Valentin Peroni, it's his first Q1 appearance of the year as well. So Valentin Peroni not used to having to fight it out and go for broke straight out the crate in qualifying in 2026, but that is exactly what he's going to have to do. Just some other riders I'd like to keep an eye on if I can. Casey Gorman, we spoke about him, he could well be one to move through. But likewise, Jesus Rios has had 3 front 2-row starting positions in the last 4 GPs. All of them were fit. So Jesus Rios really should expect to find himself moving through as well.
Hasn't missed Q2 since the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez as Rios. That's not a run that he's going to want to end here this weekend. Here he is on the number 54. There was a school of thought that perhaps this Assen circuit might well be quite favourable to the Hondas coming into the weekend, and there were Hondas 1, 2 and 3 at the end of practice yesterday, and there are still a further 6 of them in this Q1 session. Rios, Ogura and Performa surely will be heavily favoured to come through this session. As mentioned, Rios very good on Saturdays as of late, but didn't get his point streak extended last time in Brno when he missed out down in 17th place, feeling the effect of crashes earlier in the weekend.
Yeah, a few too many upside down moments for the number 54 last time out at Brno. But just having a look through my own notes, Valentin Peroni's first Q1 appearance since Malaysia last year, so this is a real collector's item, not one that he'll want to be collecting too much often in 2026. Valentin Peroni, who, let's be fair, wasn't too bad this morning, but still we know he's got a bit more than where he's been at so far this weekend. The 73 on your screen.
7th quickest this morning. He did improve by 1.4 seconds on what he did yesterday. Clearly not a straightforward session for Peroni because he's clearly a better rider than P26 and a second and a half off the pace. So we'll keep a close eye on the Argentine in this session as we now click forward. This is down through or past the Bienenschlang and into turns 6 and 7 with the 78 of Joel Esteban.
I was just about to say, one thing to keep an eye on here is going to be yellow flags and track limits. We've got yellow flags. This is over at turn 5 in its Rouge Moodley. The South African has gone down. I'm going to assume he has tucked the front there because normally that is exactly how it happens. A high side is possible, but he would not be probably up on his feet at this moment in time if so. It's very up and down at turn 5 by courtesy of the fact it's so slow. But that's a great shame for Rouge Moodley, who has shown plenty of promise and potential this weekend.
Let's have a look. Well, it looked like he was a little offline coming into turn 5 there. He was certainly offline by the time the KTM came to arrest. He was in the gravel trap altogether. Yeah, as you say, he was super quick right from the get-go yesterday morning, but unfortunately his weekend appeared to repeat in free practice 1. 21st at the end of play yesterday, and unless he can get that bike back up and running, he's going to be at the back of the grid tomorrow.
The good thing with where he's crashed is it's on the outside of turn 5, so if he needs to drag it through the gravel and then put it back in the paddock, it's pretty easy to do, and actually where the Moto3 tents are, particularly where the Code Motorsport team are, it is, as you say, Lewis, right at the back of turn 5. Fastest lap time so far set by Indonesia's Veda Pertama, 41.170. Hiroshi Oyama there noting down that lap time with his pen and pad. You might well be scribbling it out very, very soon because that time is going to tumble, although that's pretty quick and pretty representative of exactly where we've been this weekend because it's been so warm, Lewis. We didn't see the usual massive improvements in yesterday afternoon's practice session.
We haven't seen a single lap record broken so far this weekend in any of the 3 classes due to those scorching hot temperatures as this European heatwave continues. Along with yellow flags, as you rightly pointed out, which are going to play a key role in the scorepoint session, track limits will as well. Without naming names, track limits played a key role in who qualified on pole position in MotoGP earlier on this morning. 2 key areas where we have seen riders exceeding track limits through turn 13, through the Ogura corner. It's very easy to straight line that corner too much and clip the green, and then also coming out of the final Timmy chicane as you try and give yourself the straightest possible run to the finish line. You clip the green through there, your lap time will be cancelled.
That lap time by Veda Pertama, 41.1, is 1.2 seconds quicker than what he managed yesterday, but not quite as fast as what he managed this morning. So plenty of time still left out there here at the TT Circuit. Assen, your top 4 as things stand. Pertama, Peroni, Rios and Esteban, and we pick up the 78 pole sitter from Brazil now. He's trying to improve his lap time, he's trying to improve his position. Blast into the line through the GT chicane, and across he goes, consolidates 4, at least for the time being. Where's Matteo Bertelli going? fifth for him, and Jesus Rios is there in third and improving his time. Word up from pit lane is that Ruche Moodley has now got back into pit lane, so the bike is back with just under 10 minutes to go, and so is Ryder. Running up now, Veda Patama has just improved his lap time as well, a 41.090. So the track at the moment looking in good condition. That's the fastest time of his weekend so far.
Yeah, so Moodley will hoping that it's just cosmetic damage to his KTM. It was, as mentioned, a slow speed crash, one of the slowest corners of the World Prix calendar. He's distributed turn number 5, the first left-hander after a sequence of rights in his first sector. The left-hander Scott Ogden is approaching now. Ogden currently holds the final place of the 4 that moved through to qualifying 2. Ogden his best weekend of the season so far in Brno last time.
Yeah, Scott Ogden was pretty all right last time out in Brno, and normally he doesn't go too badly. He's only scored points on one occasion, I believe, looking back at it, but actually to find him in Q1 was quite surprised them.
From P7 for Scott Ogden here last season. He was in a good run of form, wasn't he, around that time? So came to the heels of his front row start in Mugello, and it doesn't appear as if there is too much frantic activity going on there with the 21 Co-Motorsports KTM or Ruche Moodley. So it looks as if his qualifying session is not over yet.
Worth noting for Scott Ogden, 3 straight point scoring finishes for the first time since last year, and that was part of a streak of 7. So, sorry, what he's aiming to do with 4 in a row is part of a streak of 7 that he did last year. So Scott Ogden, his 2026 form might not be anything to shout about, but he's slowly but surely getting back there. Talking of getting back, these guys are heading back into the pits. This is Veda Patama, he's got Zenitani just behind him as well, I believe. So both on the Team Asia machines are rolling down pit lane, and at the moment Patani is there in 9th place. We're approaching half session distance. Patama, Peroni, Rios and Ogden, your front 4 going through. Ogden just 400ths of a second ahead of Casey Gorman, whilst Joel Esteban, Matteo Batali, Cormac Buchanan, Matani, Leo Ramasrofa, Nicola Carraro, there are your other riders with lap time. Ruche Moodley crashed, hasn't set a lap time yet, but don't worry about that because the South African looks like he's going to be heading out very, very soon.
Yeah, pit lane, and he is on his way now back out of pit lane as the rest of the field will come into pit lane. Here is Veda Patama sitting very calmly in his chair. The Moto3 teams were paying attention last weekend in Brno. I think they'll be very clear this weekend not to sit on a 141.090. Patama will surely go out again. Marco Morelli was the rider last weekend, wasn't he? Guilty of being a little bit too confident doing it on one run, and it backfired spectacularly for the Argentine.
Yeah, not the first time we've seen riders dawdling either as well. We saw it last time, as you say, Lewis, back in Brno. We also saw it last in the Italian Grand Prix last month in Mugello, and Assen is a track where slipstream can help you. So don't be too surprised if in the last 6 or so minutes of this one we do see a few riders just hanging around on the outside of the racetrack looking for a bit of a slipstream, looking for a toe and that advantage that it brings, and then therefore don't be surprised to see some pencil sharpness coming out up in the MotoGP stewards room, because dawdling is very much round the block.
Old towel there on the back of the neck of Scott Ogden. Speaking as a fellow Yorkshireman, I can say with certainty he might have experienced temperatures like this many times before.
Well, we're on the same latitude as your hometown, Lewis, up here in Assen. It really is scorchio up here. Real feel of 40 degrees yesterday, and that was when we were leaving the track. The sun was beaming down right the way through. It was very, very hot when track activity was going on. But we do a few things up and down this paddock. I know both of us have got time in VIP Village, absolutely not as guests, but more so as speakers and presenters. And I was walking up there earlier yesterday morning, and it was pretty all right. In the afternoon and more towards the evening, it was so warm. So although the peak sun time normally is around 2 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it gets very, very toasty around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock here. So maybe not something to affect track action, but just to put into perspective of how warm it is, it has been ridiculously warm. For sure, on the other side of the pond, not such temperatures over in Hull, even if the UK is experiencing a heat wave at the moment.
Yes, it is, and the temperatures are likely to cool out off slightly for tomorrow, but they're still going to be around the 30-degree mark when Moto3 go racing tomorrow. As Scott Ogden looks like he's getting a little bit hot with the collar after his collar previously had that whole ice towel around it, as he wants to go with the rest of the group here and not get left behind. Ogden's not got a lot of space to play with here, has he? On the 141.714, he's just 400ths of a second clear of both Gorman in 5th, Gorman, Esteban and Battelli, 3 riders who are currently on the outside looking in, who would expect to advance through this session.
Ogden looking to actually join Eddie O'Shea and make it 2 Brits up inside Q2, courtesy of Eddie O'Shea's fantastic Friday performance yesterday. Let's just cross down to pit lane. El, have you got an update?
Yeah, no, I was just standing outside O'Shea Moodley's box. Good afternoon to everyone tuning in. Not too much damage for the South African fans, and the South African, of course, aiming to get his first time in. It was just out-of-body damage, changed the fairing. They did actually were able to go and send him out initially, and then they started changing the fairings again. So fingers crossed for Moodley, all is okay. But the bike didn't look too damaged at all, as you guys mentioned. It was a slow enough off at turn 5. So fingers crossed for the South African to get a couple of laps in here and try and get into the top 4.
Cheers for that, El. The thing that Rouchet Moodley is now up against is everyone else has had one crack at this already, Lewis. They've already got one run in. This is Rouchet Moodley's first real run, so it's a little bit behind the board. If he can get in the top 4 from here, shows he's got some pace left in the locker for Q2.
He's in the third section at the moment, and he has found himself with the racing group. That's his teammate Cormac Buchanan directly up ahead. So there are a combination, a bit of a mixture here of riders on out laps and riders on hot laps, as we see a variety of lines taking it back in the picture. Betzelli focusing on his own work, and at the moment, halfway around the lap, it's a pretty competitive lap as he now comes out of the Muivenmere corner. Goes through it now, turn 12. We'll find out whether his third section has been quick, and it's been very quick.
Betzelli working on his own has been a bit of a theme in 2026. Remember, it got him in a Mugello when everyone else was playing chicken with a ticking clock. So just keep an eye on Matteo Betzelli here. Not only is he looking to move into the top 4 and dispose of Scott Ogden, he may well be pushing Jesus Rios into that rider at risk zone. Betzelli across the line goes second and just misses out for P1 by 21 thousandths of a second as everyone else comes across the line. O'Gorman has gone in as well there. Joel Esteban only good enough for 6th place, but Casey O'Gorman, good work on his first blind lap in this second run to move through into 4th place. This lap has gone away from him, courtesy of him running out onto the curbs, and he keeps out of harm's way as on the outside of Osserbrook in turn 3 and 4.
No improvement for Esteban on that lap in terms of position. That's why he's safe. No improvement from Rios either, so that's cost him a place at the moment in the top 4. There he is on the 54.
Saat butuh dana cepat, pilih yang aman dan terpercaya. Ready One.
Download aplikasi GoPay, selalu gratis top up dan tarik tunai di Alfamart dan Indomaret.
Top up selalu kena biaya ya.
Looking to try and move through the head of this group, I say. He's looking to try and move through. So far, not good enough through the opening half of this lap. Ogden very much good enough at the moment. He's in this group. He's got Jesus Rios just up ahead of him. But the number 19 with the pink number 19 pink crash helmet on your screen, looking good halfway round this lap. Let's see if he encounters problems so when slipstream comes into play in the second half of this lap here at Assen.
Ayo gaskan Veda, tertajam lagi waktunya. Tertajam lagi waktunya. Oh, Buchanan, Aufnen, mau hot lap lagi. Waduh, estimen 1. Si Aufnen sama Buchanan.
Hopefully keeps it clean. Oh, Cormac Buchanan has gone down into the gravel and he's not happy. Ogden goes P1 and that is going to put him into Q2. So Scott Ogden, or as he should be called here in the Netherlands, Scott Clogden, has gone up into P1 ahead of Veda Patama, Matteo Betzelli and Valentin Peroni. Cormac Buchanan is fuming, and that is because he was trying to come through on Jesus Rios. That was up at the inside at the final chicane. Whether he's fuming with Rios or himself, we'll have to wait and see. But Cormac Buchanan's session has ended at the very best of 10th place. That is a disaster, Lewis.
I'll tell you with certainty, Kiko's been saving that up for weeks, and he picked his moment with aplomb into the final chicane. It's fair to say that Cormac Buchanan didn't pick his moment. He dives on the inside of Jesus Rios, who wasn't exactly on a slow lap, but perhaps had rolled off slightly, having been picked up by Ogden a couple of corners earlier. Buchanan, of course, in that sort of situation, going for Q2 places, he had to lunge on the inside of Rios. He had to keep pushing, and he clearly feels that the Spaniard has done his cause. No help at all.
Yeah, the other thing with Cormac Buchanan is that he's almost not giving himself enough room to build into there, and I understand his frustration. He's got to go for that move, otherwise he's going to be balked in the middle of that chicane. So hard luck for Cormac Buchanan. He's going to be 24th in the grid at best, but have a look at this. Zen Matani and Veda Patama. At the moment, Patama is okay in second place. There's one rider out there who may well just be able to have a say. 3 red sectors and a 10th under. Casey Gorman is going gangbusters here. We're going to take Matani to the checkered flag here. The checkered flag is already out. Matani improves, but not by enough. Goes 6. Casey Gorman is in the final sector. Let's have a look at the number 67 on the 658 Squadron Caution machine. He's right up behind Azer Thriels. Is it going to be enough for the top 4? Casey Gorman. Oh, it's enough for P1. Ireland from the UK. They are going through into Q2. Casey Gorman saves it very, very well. And the big casualty, Lewis, Valentin Peroni is not moving through. Out of Q1 at the circuit where he took his maiden podium here last year. Valentin Peroni is 19th and on the 7th row of the grid. What a disaster for the Argentine.
Unforgiving session, super close. A 10th of a second covered the top 5 riders, and the rider on the outside looking in, the rider without a chair to sit in when the music stopped, was Valentin Peroni. A 1:41.156 was not enough to move through. Peroni ahead of Mitani, who was helped there without question. His teammate Vena Pratama was towing him round for the first 3/4 of that lap and then released it into the ramp shook. So Mitani did at least get 6th in that session. Rios will be disappointed with 7th, so to Esteban 8. He'll be down in 22nd on the grid. Moonley did at least get himself up 3 places. It would have been last on the grid if he's out for